We're going to give it just another minute, waiting for another council member. We'll be starting in just a minute. Well, we gave it a minute and we haven't heard a response. If we hear a response, we'll let you guys know, but I don't want to hold up the public that's here for a meeting. It is to start at 3:30, so I am going to call to order. This is the regular meeting of the City Council, and the City Council serving as a successor agency to the former Redevelopment Agency Board for Wednesday, December 8th, 2021. This is our study session. It's going to be a little more informal. We'll kind of get into the rules here in a minute, but I do want to do a roll call first.
Councilmember Gardner.
Present.
Councilmember Nunez. Councilmember Pai.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Betts.
Present.
And Mayor Mattis.
Present. We haven't had a study session in quite a long time, but just to refresh, right, our council member made it. For the record, we'll show that Mr. Nunez is in attendance. We got a full council. Just for the record, for the rules of the study session, when you do have a study session, you are to speak on the item that's on the agenda. This isn't an open session like a regular city council meeting, so if you're here to make other comments besides what the item is on the agenda, you'll need to wait till the regular meeting that starts at 6 o'clock. But we will be taking public comments today. If you want to fill out a blue card and hand it to the city clerk, the blue cards are located on the desk over there if you're planning to make public comment. We'd just like to have that for the record with your name on it. You don't have to right now, but if you choose to, please give it to the city clerk, and the city clerk will make sure I get it. We are going to take some, we're going to listen to the report first by our staff, who has a short 10-minute to 10.5-minute report. And then we're going to listen to public testimony and comments. Anything that you'd like to say. It will be timed. We do have other meetings backed up to this one, so we'll be giving each of you 3 minutes. Doesn't seem like a long time, but it is. So your 3 minutes will be during public comments, and then we'll go to council for discussion. The study session is not to have any action taken, so if you're expecting us to come up with a plan and make any action items or requests tonight, that's not going to happen during the study session. This is just for informational reasons, or not informational reasons, but give informational direction to our city staff on how we move forward with this type of plan. So with this said, I'm going to turn it over to our city manager to start.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. So I thought I'd start off the study session with a short presentation. We're just going to give an overview. I'm going to have our finance director give a quick overview on the American Recovery Plan, American Recovery P. Thank you. Plan. Oh, I did have it right. Plan Act. Rescue. Thank you. We're going to give a brief overview on the amounts, the spending requirements, and the categories. And then he'll kick it back over to me, and I'll talk about the categories that I think are in line with the direction that the city's been heading, and give some project ideas as well that would go along with those. And then I also have our financial consultant, Michael Bush from Urban Futures on to talk about a few considerations to think about when you're thinking about how to give direction on the funding. And then we'll end with some next steps. So go ahead, Jeffrey.
Okay, so for our overview, the city has been allocated $6.9 million, of which we already spent 1.7, we have 5.1 remaining. They must be obligated by the end of the calendar year 2024 and spent by the end of the calendar year 2026, and must be used to alleviate the negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our next slide for the eligible expenses. They have 5 categories. They are public health emergency response, which is for services and programs used to respond to and contain COVID-19, negative economic impacts due to the pandemic, which is assistance to businesses, households, and individuals, revenue loss, which is to be used for the provision of government services, infrastructure improvements for water, sewer, and broadband, and then premium pay for essential workers who regularly interact with others or physically handle items handled by others.
Okay, so all those categories lead to a lot of different ways to spend the money. And so as staff's been analyzing the categories over the last few months, we identified these top 3. The first one is revenue loss, which the City Council has already taken action on earlier this year. We calculated a revenue loss for the year 2020, and that came to $1.6 million that we used to fund the building of the dispatch center. Because we're to the end of 2021 now, we can do that revenue loss calculation again. And what that does is it frees up the money for more flexible spending. The second category is infrastructure improvements. There's been a lot of efforts and talk made about improving areas of our industrial and our commercial zones to attract economic development. And so we can do that by using the money to put in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure and the related road upgrades that go along with it. We can also use infrastructure improvements to improve outdoor spaces, public plazas, and parks. And then the last category that is in line with what the city's been doing is with the educational youth and wellness after school programs. As the city has expanded its recreation department, we could use the funding to expand the outdoor space for those activities as well. So those are the main ones, but other interests have come up as well. One idea is to use, well, one thing that we've heard repeatedly is that everybody seems to agree that we want to do something significant with the money, and that the more projects we do, the less impact those projects may have. So there's an idea that if we choose perhaps 2 or 3 projects, that they'll have more impact. The other is to tie project decisions to the general plan, since the general plan is already a guiding document for the city. And there were thoughts that we should be considering the city's changing demographics as we consider what to do for projects. And there were other thoughts that we should think about assistance to businesses that were forced to close during the pandemic. And there were also sentiments that we should build stronger neighborhoods. So those 3 top categories, this is what they look like on a chart. So if we use the revenue loss calculation for the year 2021, right now the calculation shows about 2.5 million. We have about 5 million left, so that would free up half of it that we could use much more flexibly. And then these other 3 categories, I'm going to go to the next slide because each of them we have some suggested projects that would go along with them. So in the first category, to improve outdoor spaces, parks, and public plazas, we're already making efforts to make a downtown area on Pearson by relaxing the traffic between Cactus and West, and we could take the funding to support that. We are already using a significant amount of grant funding to do Hacienda Street improvements, and there are some ideas that if we were to extend those into Miracle Hill, that we could create an outdoor walking spaces, that's something that might help draw tourism. And then in the second category, the water, sewer, and broadband, and the road upgrades that come along with that, the I-10 corridor between Indian and Palm, if we were to put the infrastructure in, the idea would be to attract development there. And then we've also designated an area in the industrial zone south of Two Bunch and east of Little Morongo to Cabot's Road. And the idea would be to put in the infrastructure and the roads and the gutters and sidewalks with the idea to attract either cannabis or other kinds of industrial use. And then the last category is the educational youth and after-school programs. And there's an idea to use the money to expand the usable outdoor area around the Health and Wellness Center that could benefit the youth and the after-school programs and even our adult residents. So at this point, I'd like to invite Michael Bush to talk about some considerations, regardless of what the thoughts are, what to use the money for. These are some guidelines. Could we?
Great. Thank you, Luke. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. It's a pleasure to speak before you today. In line with the comments made by Luke and Jeffrey prior to this slide, my considerations are more focused on policy as well as implementation of your plan. And my thinking goes back towards, what you've asked me to watch, which is the long-term view of the city's financial position. And so for considerations, Luke's pointed out some fairly detailed options that you have, but another option you have obviously is to continue to receive the money as revenue loss calculation. And Luke in a prior slide pointed out what the estimate for calendar year 21 is, about 2.5 million. What this would allow the city to do is to bring the money in-house and to use it for a more flexible assumption later on, which I think would be next fiscal year. One of the options that I wanted to throw out, since I spoke with all of you about the financing for the police and fire facilities, that you could allocate some of these monies towards that to bring the total borrowing cost down. And as you know, in your presentation of your financial model several months ago when we presented to the council at a public meeting, we had already calculated in the debt service into your long-term model. Should the council decide to use these monies for that purpose, we would basically be reducing the annual debt service and actually creating more annual operational surplus through your model. From a basic standpoint, it's a good best practice to make sure you use one-time money for a one-time expense. It's pretty common discussion regarding capital funds, and specifically to ensure that there's no increase in operational costs as a result of the programming of the monies. Doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't do that. However, if you add something in that requires an increase in operational costs, then we would basically need to include that in the next model revision to see what that impact is over time. And I think, as Luke pointed out, we do think there's some quality opportunities to leverage the monies towards one-time investments that will create additional returns. I certainly think your industrial area is something we've talked about, honestly, for about a decade. We were making some progress post-redevelopment with that, and then, obviously we've had Great Recession. Now we've had, obviously, a COVID pandemic that we've been dealing with, but that is something that's been on the city's radar for a good 10 plus years. Those are the things that I wanted to cover. I know you have some next steps in discussing what to do with the remaining amounts of money. There's some program and projects that you guys want to discuss, and I'd be happy to stay on your study session to answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Michael. So yes, so the next steps would be to turn it back over to the City Council, and staff can wait for direction on bringing back any particular proposals, and along with those, we would bring back impact ratings about how those proposals, if they were carried out, would affect our community.
Great. I appreciate the report. Again, this is our study session. It's going to be a little more informal, but we are going to have to stick to timelines when the public speaks, because we're going to have a few speakers. And then we'll get to council comments. I don't want everybody to be discouraged. I shouldn't say this way, but $5.1 million is not a lot of money when it comes to government. Unfortunately, it has to be stretched. But this is a wish list of projects that could roll over not just to the ARPA, but into the infrastructure bill that's being written or been approved by the federal government. So there's lots of other pots of money. That's just another pot of money. And if we as a city council say we want these 10 items to be priority, the staff comes back with, we can finance, maybe 3 of those projects. It gives them still a good wish list of more projects to be able to work with in the future. So please don't be discouraged when you see the $5.1 million. That's just a target for this pot of money, but there's plenty of pots of money out there. We'll see how far they get stretched. With that said, we're going to start with public comments, and first up on my list is Judy Bowman. You have to push the button. Just push the button, it'll turn red. There you go. Perfect.
There we go. Good afternoon, council and staff. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. Good to see you. Well, I haven't been in this building before, so this is a nice time to be in here. 18 years ago, my husband and I purchased a rundown little motel, and it had been currently running as apartments. We created a business from nothing. We were kind of naive, didn't really know much about Desert Hot Springs or what we were going to be doing, but we did create a successful business and loved it. We did it for 16 years. So a couple years before we thought about retiring, we put it on the market and didn't really have any serious buyers coming to look at it. So unfortunately, we had to sell it to a group that did not use it as a hotel any longer. It's a great business, but it's not bringing in the TOT. It's not part of the tourism world anymore. We really broke our hearts about that, but we also had to sell our business. I understand that there is discussion about using some of these monies to offset the losses that were faced by the hotel owners. Fortunately for us, we sold right before the pandemic. I think it's better to be lucky than smart sometimes. But I know, because we're still friends with the hotels in town, we hear the talk and we know what's going on. And it just seems to be almost a no-brainer to use some of these monies to do something to increase tourism, to truly make a spa zone so people get there and it's like, oh, okay, we drove through all the desert, we're here, now I get it. One of the best things the city did years and years ago, I think it was under Rick Daniels, is the streets got paved. And all of a sudden, when people came into town, it wasn't just run down, tore up old streets and potholes. It looked like the city was being taken care of. There was also a big boost in code enforcement, and most of the graffiti was quickly, and even to this day, quickly gets covered. That's huge. When you've got people coming here, not even realizing where they're coming, thinking they're coming to Palm Springs, they go north off the freeway, they drive through this town, and it's like, where in the world am I going? What am I doing here? They come into our hotels and love it, and we give them a great experience. So as hotel owners, the biggest thing we can do is to help them not be afraid to come back. And that's where the city steps in. The city has done a remarkable job in years past helping to pave things. They've given us marketing money. I feel like I'm still part of that group. They've given marketing money for the tourism industry. But to really, I think the best thing for you guys is to continue to listen to the hotel owners and see what they need, see what needs to be done to fully take advantage of this lovely mineral water we have, this environment we have. They're doing great, but it would give you get your money back with the TOT that would be increased. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next comment I have is Kaz Murphy.
Hi there, thank you for having me. I was recently project manager for the Azure Palm Hot Springs with Maria Lease for a little over a year. But besides that, my wife and I have a design build business called Sand and Stone Design Build. We bought a property up a little north of 8th and Ocotillo, kind of across from the DHS Spa on Ocotillo, and we've designed a called Toba Day Spa, which is a Batak-style day spa. We bought the property about 2 years ago, but because of COVID, we kind of got slowed down with materials, the city getting permits and things like that. And we figure we're maybe 6-8 months behind where we could be. We're just about ready to break ground now. And we're also in the works of possibly purchasing some of the property that is around that property to actually make it a hotel with a day spa. That's not a closed deal yet. And I know this isn't in the area that was in your list because it's up here Ocotillo off of Palm. But I just wanted to bring that up. I didn't know if there was any possibility of anything. So, and we're, very enthused of making Desert Hot Springs a better place and utilizing everything that's here. And, working with Maria, she's number one, my book. Gary knows that.
Yeah, she's a huge cheerleader. Appreciate you and appreciate what you're doing for the community.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience before I go to Zoom that would like to come up and make any comments? I don't have any other cards. You're more than welcome to make any comments towards what you'd like to see. I don't see anybody standing. We'll go to Zoom at this time. Yes, come on forward. State your name, and then when you're done, if you could just do me a favor, just fill out a blue card and hand it to the clerk.
Okay. My name's Holly Ledoux. I moved here a couple of years ago because my mom lives in Palm Springs, and it's less expensive here than Palm Springs. But I am really, I worked a lot in Berkeley in community development, and so I was part of a consortium of I helped run the district. There would be the property owners, and they had created a 501c3 that was to help with community development. And so we would help the renters of the property to do whatever they needed, like whether they needed help doing an anniversary for their store or a store opening or doing culinary tours. We would arrange it for this section, and it got to be very successful, and it helped keep the district full of renters and businesses. And so I'm very pro-business, and I would like to see something like that created here. I would love to help if I could. I don't know if anyone's ever considered that. It seemed, after working in Berkeley, it was such a great idea. We did the Shop Local program, and we created stickers, and we went out and we did put stickers in all the windows of the businesses that they were local owned, so that people would know when they're shopping for Christmas that this is going to go back into the community. And I'm sure most of you have read about the Bellingham, Washington project, where they discovered that for every dollar that is spent in a community, if it's spent in a local business, 84% of that dollar goes back into the business. If it's spent in a large department store or a chain, only 43% goes back. So we want to see as much money as possible come into the community and make it as beautiful as we can. And I love what you guys are doing so far. And I live off of Hacienda, so I'm really excited to hear that. And anyway, thank you. That's all I want to say.
Thanks. If you can fill out your card over there, I'm sure a few of us would like to get your contact information and go from there. Appreciate it. The blue slip. There you go. Anyone else in the audience like to stand and make any comments? All right, we're going to go to Zoom.
There's no one on Zoom.
Okay, I thought I saw a couple names on there. Are you sure? Do you want to double check that?
Yeah, the two registered for a general public comment under the regular session.
They might be confused.
Okay.
Do you want to pull them in and just make sure they don't want to make any comments?
Yeah.
While they're checking on that, just to make sure, I have a Barb and I have a Nan. Either one can unmute yourselves if you wanted to make comments for this session. Barb.
Hello, I'm Barb Sobel.
Did you want to make comments, Barb?
Yes, hi. I was speaking to my neighbor Nan, and maybe she'll follow up, maybe she won't. And we were just asking if you could consider the municipal swimming pool open 12 months out of the year. I think it's important that kids learn how to swim. I didn't as a child, but I did as a college student. And it would have been helpful to be a swimmer as a young person. And just that's my comment. If you could consider that, that'd be wonderful.
Great, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I don't see Nan on the screen. Nan, did you want to say anything? You could unmute yourself.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I talked to Daniel about the pool, and he gave me a little more information about its use and that it was being used January, I believe, into the spring. And that there hadn't been a lot, I think at one point there had been some extension of hours and there hadn't been a lot of use at that time. And that this wasn't something that that is not considered under this current plan, that it's not something that is under consideration. But something in the future we can look forward to looking into as a possibility. It's a great asset for the community, and I'm thrilled it's there, and I'm hoping that it'll be used more in the future. I have a question about usage for funds for maybe the senior center. I don't know if there's anything we can do to add programs for seniors, but that's something that I would like to have looked into.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Okay, thanks.
I should know nobody else on the screen for Zoom. Final call of the audience. All right, we're going to move on to Councilmember Comments. I will start at this end.
Gee, thanks. Go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You still got delay from the trip?
I'm not sure where you want to go with this, but I appreciate all of the input that we've gotten, a number of emails, the comments that are made here today, some interesting ideas. Do you want us to just give you our priorities, or why would you like to go with this?
Let me start with this. I'll start making my comments, and then maybe it'll prompt some comments. The city manager basically had conversations with all city council members on the fact that this money was available to us over the next few years, and basically started to outline the different pots of money that is allowed to use, or different categories that this would be allowed to be used in, and kind of started taking those and trying to see if there was some consensus among the city council on different types of projects. So that's kind of where he was at this point. So he came back to all of us and said, this is where I think that you guys are all going, but I would like to hear more, and what we wanted to do is hear from the public. I'm in agreement with a lot of what my colleagues want to use it for. I think one of the biggest discussions is our hoteliers have talked about the Miracle Hill area. We most recently received a grant from the state to beautify and make safe the walking areas and bicycle areas along with the road, also from Hacienda, Foxdale down to West Drive, right? We have received those types of fundings before, and that's what we did on Palm Drive about 4 years ago, where we redid Palm Drive everywhere from Camino Aventura up to Hacienda. And so this is, again, a safety transportation grant, but the hoteliers said it kind of stopped before it got to the Miracle Hill area. What would it take to basically make that, continue that up to Mountain View, at least Mountain View, and make it safe for walking and biking and those types of things. So definitely something that I think we all would like to see is $5.1 million. It would probably take up that almost that whole bit there to do that stretch. I don't know how much it would exactly take, but at least get the planning done. I think that would be important, and with the planning, maybe the infrastructure budget behind, or package behind it, we could be reaching out with our lobbyists and grant writers and trying to figure out if we can pull some money in to finish that project. I would like to see the money used in the ways the staff have asked, but maybe being a little more specific in our cleanup programs. We have Mayor Pro Tem Betts and I have been working with a small group of volunteers. George Padilla is our chairman, and he's been really working on picking the neighborhoods, but how do we get in those neighborhoods and how do we fund those projects? Do we use housing money, or is there's a piece of this that we could use? And when it comes to cleanup, I'm really getting more disturbed daily by Palm Drive. We've done a lot of work to clean it up, and then it just starts to revert back to where it was, with fences falling down. My biggest pet peeve in our community is dumpsters. We have these dumpsters, these commercial dumpsters that people just seem to open up and dump their trash in. If they don't do that, they do it in the desert. So we're getting some really strong policies on if you get caught dumping your trash, you're going to pay a $10,000 fine the first time you get caught, which is a new ordinance by the city of Desert Hot Springs. So we're really working hard on that. But what would it take for us to give grant funding out to really construct these dumpsters dumpster areas at these businesses along Palm Drive so that they're enclosed, they're locked, the tops are on them, just like we require new construction to be. So all new construction out there, if you have a dumpster area, you have to build a block wall around it, you have to put a top on it, you have to lock it up, and that's what I think uniformity along our main drag would look like, especially when you're driving by some of these older buildings and you can see the dumpsters hanging out. I mean, sometimes they can't even push them back into if they have an area for a dumpster, they can't even push them back in there because there's so much trash. So I would like to see a program like that, and that leads me into code compliance. We're understaffed. We know we're understaffed. How do we reach out and give more staffing to that area? In what pockets of code do we need more staffing? Do we need temporary staffing to focus on teams to go up and down Palm Drive into neighborhoods for the next year and see as a pilot program how that would work? Do we bring in a contractor to work under our code enforcement? Do we bring in more code enforcement? I think that's for the smart people over there to figure out, but that's what I would like to see maybe some of this funding used for. When you get into the social issues, I would like to see the Police Activities League brought back. I've been trying to find funding for that for 2 years now. I know we have a lot of people in our community that want to help at-risk youth. Bringing our at-risk youth with and focused on with our police department and having that funding mechanism, maybe there's a portion of this, $20,000, $30,000 that could go in to get that kick-started and get back out into our neighborhoods, our schools, and get the at-risk youth involved with our police department and see where we can do and how we can lead getting them off the streets and getting them into some good programs. The comments today, hotels, I know we're going to be talking in our regular session on the hotelier, the spa program by our committee, Jan Pai and Gary Gardner. So I don't know if we need to take money out of this pot here to do that. I think we have a good program going forward, but if there's something else to enhance TOT, I know I work with Mr. Nunez on the Parks Committee, and they're going to be meeting tomorrow night. We want to see our Parks Master Plan updated. We want to see more pocket parks. We want to see enhancements. We've spent a lot of money on our parks, and then they start to dilapidate a little bit, and we have to go back and spend more money on them, but we're never getting to that next step of building new parks. So how do we provide funding and reserves enough to be able to continue to maintain these parks at a proper level and then be able to build parks also, because it seems like we're always being reactive to having to go back and put more money into these parks. In the almost 15 years I've been on City Council, I think we've redone tonight's meeting agenda. We'll have Mission Springs on there again. This will be the third time in my 15 years that we put significant amounts of money into that park to rehab it, along with Wardman and Tedesco Park. So with that said, how do we, is there funding here that we could help develop in a park master plan on how to put reserves aside for these parks to be able to continue to keep them maintained the proper way without having to fall off the maintenance and then have to come back with large expenditures to get them rehabbed again. So maybe there's something there. I'm total agreement with the two ladies that came online about the swimming. I would love to see our pool open year round. What does that look like program wise? And maybe there's a consultant or someone out there that can put that on paper for us and show us what it's going to cost so we can plan for it down the road. We just keep getting that stop sign like it's a lot of money to fund that program, and it is. You have to have lifeguards. You have to have people that run the pool. You can't just open the pool and say, hey, good luck with you out there. This year alone, we had a man drowned in our pool, and thank God for our lifeguards who saved his life, if they weren't there. So you can't just open the pool and say, go free swim. You have to program for it. So what does that mean? And that could be part of maybe our park master plan that we do, is that we program for that. But where does that money come from in the future is the question. So, and then the other comment that was made was the senior center, and I totally agree with that. We are putting quite a bit of money into rehab of the senior center this year, and I think with the new director, we're going to be working on some better programming and some more programming now that the seniors are coming back. So maybe there's a few, $10,000, $20,000 that can be thrown in that way to help kickstart something there. For the most part, I think the city manager's office has a good plan. These are just a giant wish list of things that I'd love to see, and I can go to the next step. I have about $10 million in road projects that I'd like to see. I have, Danny's heard me a million times, Dorian and Luke all heard me a million times say, I would love to connect our schools in the north area here. We have a road that goes from Golden Eagle up to Choya that would go directly to the middle school and elementary school there. And if you live in the area that Mr. Nunez and Mr. Betts and I live in, it's a mess during the mornings and afternoon with traffic trying to flow through there. We need to have a better flow of traffic, but again, that comes with a high cost because you have to build new roads. Little Morongo is a huge piece to our roads. If you drive in our city between 3 and 6 o'clock at night, now it is impossible to get anywhere from Dillon Road to the top of town in less than a half hour. It's just so bad. And now everybody's taking the outskirts to get in, and Little Morongo is a road that really needs improvements along with the intersections. And I know we have a lot of development out there, but how long do we wait for that development to happen before we actually kickstart it? So is there funds here that we could use to try to capture more funds? So my wish list could go on and on and on and on and on about what I'd like to see, but I think that's a good start, and that's kind of what I'm looking for in the study session today, is if that helps.
That helped a lot. Actually, you hit a few of the things that I wanted to hit on as well already. And as you pointed out, and as city manager pointed out, $6 million sounds like a lot, but it really isn't when it comes to the big scope of things. And, you know, I really like the flexibility that you put in, and Mr. Bush suggested too, putting some of that into the general fund to cover revenue loss. That gives us a little bit more flexibility outside the hard stop boundaries of the ARPA funds. But, you know, I'm sitting here thinking we've got really kind of a couple of choices. Do we do one or two big things or a whole bunch of little things? And my overriding preference is to find some of these that will be an investment in the city that will show a return down the road. And I'm looking at the slide that was part of the PowerPoint there of the ARPA fund project examples: improve outdoor spaces, parks, public plazas, the water, sewer, broadband piece, and the educational youth healthcare piece there. And I think if it were my preference, the water, sewer, broadband piece, $6 million isn't going to make a drop in the bucket on that. And so I think we can have some significant impacts by looking at how to improve our outdoor spaces, and that includes some of the things along Hacienda, as well as expanding some of the programs for our kids at the Health and Wellness Center, and even like it was suggested, there was the pool. I know we've got a lot of things in the pipeline to get Wardman back open, but we have an absolutely beautiful facility over at the Health and Wellness Center that in theory could be open a lot longer, but that does cost a lot of money. I know what it costs to heat my own little pool in my backyard over the winter, and it's not cheap, a couple $100 a month in gas, and to compete a big pool like that is even more so. And the thing we have to also keep in mind as a council is that this $6 million is one time. It's like winning the lottery, and I don't want to use it to start things that will create an ongoing expense down the road if we don't have a source of revenue for those ongoing expenses. So if we hire a bunch of new staff and then the money runs out, then what do? Do we fire those staff, or do we have to go out and find some other way to keep funding those staff kind of investments? And yes, we could use a lot more code enforcement activity out there, but you know, this is a one-time pot of money that will vanish, and I'm not really keen on the idea of starting something that will then create an ongoing expense down the road once this money does run out. And as the mayor pointed out, we do have the bond out now for the senior center, so there will be a lot of stuff going on at the senior center, and I know there'll be some great improvements there. The fact that we've taken over the rec center and brought all of that in-house, and Roberta and her team are putting together programs, and Councilmember Nunez and myself have been pushing some other ideas to her, and they've been getting those in the pipeline that are really cool. So we see a lot of expansion there, and we're not using any of this money for that. So I get back to the big question of what can we do that will be an investment in the city and give us a good return on our investment down the road, and that doesn't create an ongoing expense? And I'm still kind of all over the map on specific places to do that, but those are the three overriding goals, and I know the council staff is looking for direction from us, and that's my direction. So,
one quick comment before I give it over to Mr. Betts. Today in our Riverside County Transportation Commission, they talked a lot about the infrastructure bill that's coming, or the infrastructure policy that's coming through with the grants. And the state of California, behind Texas, will be the largest awardee of money. So there's going to be an opportunity there, but we also know that it's going to go quick. So we'll have to be ready for this, and shelf-ready projects get priority, so we have to keep that in mind when we're talking about this stuff. So park master plans and park plans to build parks and roads and those types of things, if they're planned and ready to go and you can hand them to somebody, they usually get priority. Mr. Betts.
Thank you. I think the mayor said that this list could easily go to 100 million, and so I'm going to get started on the 100 million list. That's the acquisition of Parkland we're sorely lacking on parks, and one component would be to already own the parkland, even if we aren't going to do something with it immediately, but at least you did some work on a parks master plan way back when, and part of that is where do we have land, so maybe this is an opportunity to go secure some of that land. Wardman Park Pool needs renovation. We've got a plan in place. We've talked about doing that, so I'd certainly think that that would be a good candidate, even if we did something like get the pool replastered and do it in phases. And I understand there's some other funding opportunities that may be coming along. When I talked with staff that said that we may not have to include that in this money to get that done, so that's great. For about 3 years, I kept that pool going when the city was broke by raising contributions and funding it. And if somebody's talking about wanting to do a year-round pool, the heating, to heat the pool is really, really expensive on that big pool. A better candidate might be the Wardman Park pool. But if we can get that pool up and running again, I'll commit again to raising the money to, we did everything, put on the program, every expense. There wasn't a single expense that the city incurred, and I'll take that on again just to get that park open. So if some of this money could go to that would be great. Hacienda Boulevard, I asked Gerald to put up a couple slides for me. Could you put the one up, Hacienda, I think it's labeled 1 or 2, I don't know which one it is, but could you put those up, that one up? Okay, so this is what Hacienda Boulevard looks like. And I have said since I first ran for office that when people come to this town, they need to say, wow, what a nice looking little town. I want to stop here and have some coffee, have something to eat. I want to spend the night. It's a great place to live. So finally, we've made a lot of progress on Palm Drive, and I thank the prior city manager, Chuck Maynard, for all that he did to move along something that's really important to me. But I've been complaining about Hacienda for years. I don't know, maybe 6 months or a year ago, about 6 months ago, I approached Maria Lise and said, we've got to do something to get this area cleaned up. And I know she's kind of taken that to heart, and we've had some letters come in suggesting that, but there's nothing attractive about this. And when people come to these beautiful boutique spa hotels, they've got to see, I know when I go to a place, I'm looking around going, oh, this is pretty nice here. Okay, one of the things on the checklist is, what's the surrounding area? What's the amenities when you go to TripAdvisor or some of these rating things? What's it look like? Well, that's what we look like now. Can I get the next slide? So I'm driving down Dinah Shore last night, and that's what it looks like. I mean, the contrast is just like night and day between our city and theirs. And if I'm driving down that road on the way to a beautiful boutique spa hotel, I'm thinking, okay, I got something going. So that's my pitch for doing something to expand Hacienda. Now, we may be able to parlay this money into some type of grants for active transportation is big. I know it's SCAG. There's lots of, planning money for that up there, and it just seems to be the anything for bicycle or pedestrian. But anyhow, I'm making a pitch to take this project that we got going that's going to Foxdale and kick it on up to Miracle Hill and see if we can get that done. entrances to the city. I don't know if this is super important, but we took care of that down at Palm and the I-10. I think at Pearson it should be taken a look at, and also at Indian. There could be something that could be done that says, hey, we're coming into Desert Hot Springs. I don't know if that's the best use of this limited money, but it's on my list. On the Hacienda, I don't want that just to be a boulevard, just a curb-to-curb renovation. This has got to be, you know, the walkable sidewalks, and not just, you know, a 3-foot sidewalk and there you go. I mean, something, you go to these other cities and it's beautiful. It's just really nice to walk, and we need that. When these people, I've jumped back on Hacienda again, sorry. Now, we've had a lot of businesses that really suffered, and some of this money is dedicated to that. And I asked staff to look into, okay, how many businesses are out there that could use some relief, or that really suffered during this the pandemic when the things were ordered closed. And if it was 1,000 businesses and you tried to give them some money, well, it's going to end up, you're going to take a whole lot of money, and it's not going to be a lot of relief. So I got the number back from them, and thank you very much, but they determined on this criteria, and I know this is up for further discussion, but there's about 40 businesses that were actually ordered to close. And so if you took and gave each one of those $3,000, I don't know if it's it's going to come close to amounting to the losses that they incurred, but you're looking at about $120,000. If you kick that up to $5,000, you're looking at $200,000. As we were discussing this, discussing with staff and going, God, if you got 1,000 businesses and $5,000 each, you're just way over what you can afford to do. So I was encouraged by the number that came back. We might be able to provide some sort of relief there. On all of this stuff, we need to leverage the funds that we got with grants, and we're on a point system with grants, and if we could provide 30 or 40%, just say 30% of the money for the to match, well, now we're getting a whole lot more out of this $5 million. We're maybe getting 10, double the amount of money we get, maybe even more. So whatever we do, I think we had to look at the possibility of grant opportunities to do that. Gerald, I had one more slide, didn't I, on circulation? Was it? What was the other slide I had up? I forgot. So busy today. No, not that one. Oh yeah, the skate park. And I think we're talking about doing this already. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but the skate park went in, and all there is they put the part about the skating okay, but the rest of it is just dirt. And then they put the entrance in the wrong place. Put the next slide up. Okay, now here, at least if we had concrete around the thing, it would look finished. And if you put some shade structure and a wind wall, and then put the park entrance down in the parking lot instead of a driveway, I just think if we're going to find some money, whatever the plan is, I won't take too much time on this, but hopefully we're going to do something here. And I talked to staff, I made up the slide, but I talked to them, I said, well, Russ, I think we already got that one in the works. So we were looking at that already, right? So you can have this slide. That's my suggestion, to move the park entrance. And then the senior center is taken care of with a whole bunch of money coming in on those bonds we approved. Was it $350,000? Something like that for the senior center?
That sounds right. I think it was 300 that we allocated.
So 300,000. So that's no small chunk of change. So the seniors are asking for that. I don't know. I guess that's my list. It's I just really think that we get a lot of bang for our buck when we do the improvement, and that the hotel industry is really important. And I'm just embarrassed. So where'd this one come from? Oh, here's another one. Sorry, last slide. If you look at the intersection of Palm and Two Bunch Palms Trail, it can't handle the traffic that's coming through there. It's at capacity and starting to back up all the way down to Dillon and beyond. But we've got these other secondary streets that we've got to figure out some way to start sending this traffic other directions. Now, if you look over here, Camino Campanero onto the right of the screen, and then on up Verbena, that's all dirt. So nobody can really use that road to bypass. But if these were secondary collector streets going up that way, now some of this traffic can go and get to where they need to go and provide some relief for that intersection. And I think we have an opportunity with one of the projects that's coming along. Let's talk about going in there, that maybe we can get some of this done. But I think that would pay big dividends in alleviating the traffic and aggravation of the residents. So again, that's something where you've got 2 schools. It's a great opportunity for safe routes to schools, pedestrian and active transportation could probably, increase the grant opportunities to do something like that. So the bottom line, I think, is whatever we decide to do as a council, it has to be matched with grant funding. And we have until 2024 to expend this.
We have until 2024 to appropriate. Is that correct, Jeffrey?
Yes, we have until the end of 2024 to obligate it, and then the end of 2026 to actually spend it.
Okay, so my mom always used to tell me patience was not my middle name, but in this time, this situation, we at least have, a year or something to come up with a plan and try and figure out what grant opportunities are out there. And I know Danny and his crew and everybody else on that side now has been doing a really good job. And if you remember when we were broke, we had great grant opportunities to come our way, but we didn't have the money to match, so we didn't get the grants. It's almost like if you have the money, you don't need it. Well, we got some money. Let's turn that $5 million into 10 or 15 if we can, and then really do a lot more. Okay, that's it. I'm done.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Dunya, are you going to go to Ms. Pye first?
Since I was late, I'll let Jan go first.
Ms. Pye.
I don't have an excuse. I'm not going to repeat what other people have said, but let me say this. The senior center, the director has already given to the city manager ideas of what she wants to do. The old, I guess, city council will be part of the senior center, and that's where they can expand also. Chamber of Commerce, we have a Chamber of Commerce, so where you were talking about districts, that's another way to do it. One of the things outside of what you guys have talked about, I don't have a problem with it. Infrastructure, no, what we did with the general plan, I would like for us to continue that. Otherwise, why did we do the general plan? The other thing there was in here about creating neighborhoods. What I would like to do, there are people who want homes, don't have the education, not college education, the education on how to get a home and to keep a home. And I was talking to Danny and Eric about this the other day. There is ways to do that. And then when you own a home, you take a little bit of better care of it. So that's my thing, which won't take a lot of money, is to educate our constituency. And it's $5.1 million. Go.
My turn. Thank you. I want to apologize for being a little bit late. I have a teenage son that thinks that I'm on his time all the time, so I do apologize. It's given me a lot of time to think and say, like, we have some funds. Where do we want to see it? What do we want to do? And the first thing that, after hearing everybody speak and talking with staff, I would love to see this money, say, a gift that keeps giving. In other words, we can invest this money in somehow that's going to help the city grow, to generate more revenue. I think it's kind of a no-brainer. But there's a few things that I would like right off the bat to see is that every school in the city has crosswalks, but they're not lit, and they don't have the yield sign where you have a flashing light when someone's using crosswalk. I think that's very vital for our students now that it's getting dark early. I think that's something that shouldn't even be negotiated. That's something that we should start doing now. We have 10 schools here, so I don't think it'll take up a big funding. But this is something that I think our kids will remember for a long time, that we made it safe for them walk to school and home from school every day. So that's one thing I'm hoping the council can jump on board with me to say that's something that's to happen automatic and we must do. Along with the mayor, I think some of these fundings could, not very much, but we can kickstart some kind of youth program for at-risk students and at-risk teenagers. Maybe a Desert Hot Springs Youth Task Force, kind of like with the police department and code enforcement department, to help youth and not only mentor, but show them the skills, life skills that the schools don't. So I think a little bit of funding can go toward that. As far as parks, we have some beautiful parks here in the city, but as me and the city manager has done tours of all the parks, we noticed that these parks are not all finished. We know that it's really hard to get parkland. We do fight for it, and we want that every square inch be utilized. So, I mean, some of these parks can be upgraded and improvements be done, but a lot of these parks have empty, usable space that we're not using. So I think that's important, that we need to see if we can allocate a little bit of funds for that. And I'm saying all this is probably a little bit of funds. It's not going to add up to $5 million. And I do agree with Councilman Betts that we should reuse this money for grants and match it up with grants. That way we have abundance, at the end of the year or at the end of this time period to tie it in with. So I can go along with that if we needed to. Other things that we can probably use it for, small business loans for our residents. A lot of them want to start businesses, they just don't know how. So maybe we can tie a little bit of funds to help them apply for a loan. Maybe that's all they need is a Kickstarter, and then at the end of the day have them pay it back at a small interest, and that way we can get a group some funds at least. Along with that, with the parks, I want to go back to the health and wellness of the city, making the city walkable and promote healthy living for not only our seniors but our youth and our families. We have a lot of families that are moving to the city, so I think it's important that we show that we have hiking trails, we have paths for them to utilize, and who knows? I think this can go a long way. Going back to reinvesting these monies, I would like to see, like what staff had said, that Little Morongo get a little bit of infrastructure, or at least a plan for a future, and a little infrastructure that we can put in. That way we can have, as business comes into that area, they can put it back. So we're giving them a small loan, but we're going to recoup those monies once they move in and start developing. Along with the I-10, I think the I-10 is very vital for our future in Desert Hot Springs, is bringing in those businesses, that hotels and if Applebee's or whatever comes in, that we have a little bit of infrastructure there already, so they can, when they do move in, they can bring that money back and pay that money back that we helped them with. As far as the broadband, I think with the federal government approving the next round of budgets, I think we're going to be seeing more funds with that. I would like to get a plan ahead, rather than just saying, okay, there's money for broadband, what does that look like? So I want to get a plan that we can get. What does that look like? I would love to have the discussion with the council, what their ideas, and pick their brains on that. Other than that, I mean, I'm not really asking for much. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Compared to some of us, yeah, you weren't asking for yeah. Mr. Best started with that $100 million number, so I only went to $50 million, I think. Ms. Pye?
One more thing. I don't know why we didn't think of this. We just went to an ICSC conference, and during that we found a lot of vendors that were interested in what we're doing and how we want to do it, and that's a way to get grants, to redo loans. For instance, we sat and had lunch at one dinner. Lunch is what we had. I'm sorry, we came in yesterday and I'm tired. But it was very instrumental, and we talked about having something at I-10 and how that will influence our city. So there's other things, and staff will bring it back, but there are other things regarding entertainment, restaurants, and etc. So those are things that it won't take the 5 million. It may take some just for inspiration. But we went there at the right time. I'm done.
Thank you very much. I was just reading, there was some breaking news on Prop 68 that had passed, and our assemblyman had pushed for $44 million in parks money, and $22 million will be actually allocated to the Coachella Valley. A lot of it, nothing in Desert Hot Springs. I don't know why, but maybe there's going to be some excess funding there. So again, another pot of money to look at. Yeah, it's just I think there's a lot of great ideas up here. We've only been going for an hour, so we have a little more time. You have another comment?
I was just going to ask you, can you guess where that park money went if it didn't come to Desert Hot Springs?
Well, actually, they did outline it in the 4 cities that did receive.
4 cities?
Yeah.
They did, no.
So, but that, you never know what's available there, but I was hoping it was in general, but then I saw it outlined in a few cities, so. Anyways, if there's something we've missed or staff wants to wrap up with a few comments, feel free. If there's something that you guys like to add, I'd be happy to hear.
If anybody's got anything to add, I can let you go first. And
actually, yes, I'd like to add something. We actually, if there was discussion of using this account for leveraging with grant funding, grants, accompanying grants. One of the restrictions on these funds is that they cannot be used as a non-federal match to other grants.
As a what?
As a non-federal match. So if you say, if a grant, they have a grant and you need to have matching money that is not federal money, we cannot use these funds.
So we'd be seeking federal grants.
Well, we'd have to seek grants that allow federal funded matches.
Do state grants allow that usually, or?
Some grants do. It depends. It tends to be most tend to have. There's some do, some don't.
Jeffrey, if we use the revenue loss calculation, does that provide more flexibility for that portion?
That does not provide flexibility as a non-federal match.
Okay.
Anyone else in staff have comments?
I would just say that I've heard some common themes. I think they were sort of previewed in the presentation, but that we can definitely look at how to leverage the money, how to invest it to pay back, and then combine that with financial best practices to bring back some ranked ideas for you at the next study session.
So as the wheel of government works, as you listened, we have funding that will now be planned. And then implemented. I just want to make sure we stay on the timelines. I want to make that very clear. I know in the past there's been funding that have come down through Desert Hot Springs, and we have not been able to apply it all. And it was very restricted through AQMD, but we lost it because we weren't able to apply it in time. So I'm sure that the federal government would suck that money right back up in 2026 if we didn't spend it and go put it somewhere else. So let's make sure that we stay on a timeline and put together a good timeline to be able to plan and implement some sort of plan with this money. I don't see anybody else with any more comments from staff. Anyone else in the audience want to come back up for a second round? All right, well, I appreciate everybody coming out. We did allot an hour and a half for today. We just went over a little bit over an hour, so I'll give the council a little bit of a break. We are going to go immediately into our closed session, so we're going to actually go into that item and announce that and then recess in a closed session. So at this time, we're going to call to order the closed session, and we'll take roll call for that.
Councilmember Gardner?
Present.
Councilmember Nunez? Councilmember Pai? Mayor Pro Tem Betts?
Present.
And Mayor Mattis?
Present. Do we have any public comments on our closed session? We have 3 items on our closed session.
No, we do not.
No one's filled out a card. We'll now go to our city attorney to announce those closed session items.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We have 3 items on the agenda. Number 2 is conference with labor negotiators. Government Code Section 54967.6. The agency designated representatives are the city manager and myself. The employee organization is the Desert Hot Springs Police Officers Association. Number 3 on the agenda is conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54967.6. Agency designated representatives are again the city manager, myself, and the employee organization is Desert Hot Springs Employees Union. The last item for closed session is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to subdivision D2 of section 54956.9. Facts and circumstances involve issues pertaining to a certain person who has threatened litigation against the city, although no formal claim or action has been filed.
Yes. You have
Question of the city attorney. So who is the person that's threatened litigation against the city? Don't we have to state that in the...
It doesn't necessarily need to be in there. It is a public document. The person, I don't have the, let me see if I can get the letter real quick. It is an attorney with the last name of Shackman. So that is a public record, and we do have his letter threatening litigation.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? With that said, I appreciate everybody. We'll recess to closed session. The first meeting of December, or usually the last meeting of December, which is first and last, for us is this meeting here today. We appoint the Mayor Pro Tem for the next year. The Mayor Pro Tem is basically the right-hand person to the mayor. If I'm not able to attend events, cut ribbons, make speeches, all my magical powers I have, the Mayor Pro Tem steps in for me and handles that. This year I'd asked Russell Betts to be our Mayor Pro Tem for 2021. He did a fantastic job, and I just wanted to give him a certificate. You can frame it and have another plaque. Oh. It says that Mayor and the City Council of the City of Desert Hot Springs hereby honors Russell Betts, Mayor Pro Tem. On behalf of the City of Desert Hot Springs, we hereby honor you in grateful recognition for serving as Mayor Pro Tem for 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Scott, you've been doing this a long time, and it's really easy to serve as Mayor Pro Tem with you at the helm. Gary, I'm not sure you have to do much, but when he calls you to attend a meeting, be there. And thanks for the honor to be Mayor Pro Tem for this past year.
And with that said, it's ceremonial that we appoint the next person. Since I've been mayor, I take the seniority list very seriously. And next on our seniority list for Mayor Pro Tem is Gary Gardner. Gary Gardner's been a council member for over 3 years now. And he has rotated into the position to be senior person, and he will be my selection with the ratification of the City Council today for Mayor Pro Tem for 2022. Do I have a motion?
I would certainly make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There is a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please? I did that on purpose, seeing Gerald was up there. See how fast he could run? Yeah.
Aye.
We can just say all in favor.
No. We got
Councilmember Nunez.
Aye.
Councilmember Pai.
Aye.
Councilmember Betts.
Aye.
Mayor Maras.
Aye.
Did Gary get to vote?
Oh, Gary should have. He should vote too.
I abstain.
With that, please congratulate Gary Gardner. Would you like to say anything?
No, thank you. I recognize it'll be a pretty easy job because you've never missed a meeting and you rarely miss a ribbon cutting. So, but I will be happy and honored to stand in for you and serve as Mayor Pro Tem for next year. It's been my honor to serve the last 3 years, and this will make the 4th year a really great one. So thank you.
We're going to take about a 1-minute break while they switch seats real quick, move some furniture. We'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Test.
Check, microphone check.
It's one job I almost wanted to be a roadie and just check microphones. Check, 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 1, 2. And then get the guitar and, you know, just play a couple strums. You know, not that I could play, but.
While we're still on break, Mr. Mayor, I just want to let everybody know that we'll get the power cords changed. I just want you to know how dialed in our staff is. Some of us have Android, some of us have iPhone. And so the cord over there, since I have Android, is for me, and I've got an Apple here. We won't be able to charge our phones for this meeting, but I just want to take that moment to tell staff what a fantastic job you guys do for us. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. They're just switching the computers over here, and as soon as they do that, we'll get started.
You got a lot. We should have just switched chairs too. It would have been easier.
Don't worry, I'll switch it later. That one's more comfortable than this one is.
Yeah, like getting into a new car.
You want this one?
That's why they're involved in politics, not engineering or something like that. Right. Yeah. While Gerald's doing that, he's going to be fixing the computers here. I'm going to reopen the meeting and get going here and just do some housekeeping stuff here. So we'll start first with the city attorney's report on closed session. Ms. Mizrahi.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Members of the City Council, we have 2 reportable items. The first one I'm going to report on is item number 2. The council voted 5-0 to approve the memorandum of understanding. And the memorandum of understanding is the City of Desert Hot Springs and the employees assigned to classifications represented by the City of Desert Hot Springs Police Officers Association. The term of the MOU is July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2023. The main terms of the MOU are a salary increase of 12.5% to police officers and 10% increase to sergeants. There are some other benefits as well that are all located in the MOU, but of note as well is there is a one-time, in consideration of response during the COVID pandemic, the city is providing a one-time payout to $2,500 per eligible employee. And that is on number 2. We also have another reportable item on from the closed session, which is, again, the City Council voted 5-0 to approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Desert Hot Springs and the City of Desert Hot Springs Employees Union. The term of the agreement is July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2023. The main term of the agreement is that there is a 10% average increase. And in addition to the 10% average increase, there are some ancillary benefits as well. And in addition, there is same kind of concept regarding the COVID pandemic. In consideration of response during the COVID pandemic, the city is providing one-time payouts of $2,500 per eligible employee. These memoranda of understandings will be, they are public record now, and we'll make sure that if anybody asks for them, we get them a copy. That concludes my closed session. Thank you.
The most you had to report out in a while. She earned her paycheck today. Our agenda is packed, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, and in light of that, I will be going item by item, and when I get to those items, I'll be asking if anybody's in attendance for that item. If somebody's in attendance for that item, we'll take it right then. If no one's in attendance for that item, we're going to push off until after we get through. I know there's quite a few of you that are here for certain items, and I'd hate for you to sit here for the next 4 hours with us, so I'd like to, I know your time is important to us, so I will be asking those questions, so the agendas will we'll skip around if there's no objections to that. I am going to ask for an approval of the agenda, but we do have to pull item 18 for a public comment. If no one needs a staff report on it, I'll just take the public comment. The public comment's made. We can take the whole consent calendar in whole, but I'll listen to public comment first and then let you make that decision. We have Brad Anderson on, I'm assuming he's on Zoom. I don't see him here in person.
So moved. You want
There's a number that keeps popping up. I assume that's him.
All right, if you can ask him if that's him, I'll take his public comment and then I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda and the consent calendar in whole.
Okay. He was there a minute ago, and I don't see him anymore.
Okay, no one on there, then what we're going to do is ask the council for approval on the agenda, including the consent calendar, unless somebody needs to pull something.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Mr. Nunez, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
We'll move to public comment at this time pursuant to the Brown Act. Any person may comment on matters of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council not listed on the agenda. Under the Brown Act, the City Council shall not take action on or discuss matters raised during public comment portion of the agenda that are not listed on the agenda. All comments are to be directed to the City Council, shall be devoid of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain professional, courteous decorum during public comments. We're coming out of COVID. I've got more than 2 this time. So last few meetings, we've only had 2. Eddie Johnson, you're up first. You may. You need to press the button. You know how to do that.
Sure. That's better. Mayor, City Council members, congratulations, Gary. Governor is becoming okay. Staff, residents. First comment is Veterans Park. I noticed the flag, the USA flag, is now larger than the POW flag. Thank you very much for that. Took it out of my front yard. I have something I'd like to read. And of course, I'm not the state senator person, but I'll do my best because that person has left. On behalf of the 28th California, I'm going to probably mess up. I'm not a politician. Not me. Senate District, myself, Edward G. Johnson, Purple Heart veteran. We are going to honor as recognize the annual efforts in planning Veterans Day service for City of Desert Hot Springs and honoring those who have served our country. Congratulations to Roberta. You can come up if you want. Say a few extra words for the paycheck. I'm going to say something. Yeah. You have done so many things out here with the parades. You do things for Veterans Day. So I had talked to the field representative. She took off and went to Sacramento for a new job. She asked me to come up and do this for her. So I'm presenting this to you.
Thank you, Eddie. It's truly a pleasure being able to plan events for the community, and I come from a military family, so I am honored to be able to plan for the veterans. Thank you.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for presenting that. Next on my list here is Kathy King.
Okay.
Oh, you just turned yourself off. Yeah,
all right.
There you go.
You can tell it's my first time. I just wanted to talk a little bit about beautification of Hacienda and the spas. I've been a resident for 20 years. I was here before Starbucks, so that was a big milestone coming from LA. They showed us around to all the different areas, and there's something about this place that's really special to me. I think it's the views, but the gift that the city was given was the hot mineral water. It's healing. It's great. When I came, those little spas were all kind of like not even operating, a lot of them. I know Maria from Los Angeles, so I want to thank you guys, first of all, for all the improvements that you've done, because I see a major change and a major pride that people are putting into their homes, you know, by the pavement and, you know, all of that. But the gift here is the mineral spas, and I would love to see, you know, setting a mood for people coming up. We live in such a visual world now that it would be nice in that Miracle Hill area to have some visual serenity and some trees and, you know, just an improvement of the Hacienda Avenue. It sets the mood for people, you know, and they come to relax, and everything that you've done, including the new trail that opened. I mean, when you walk that long, you want to go soak in the tub. So I just really wanted to, you know, support and Maria's vision, and everybody who's invested here and taking the risk by pouring their money into a spa, and hopefully have, you know, people come, you know, that old movie, build it and they will come. So I would love for the city to hopefully do what they can to encourage more visitors. I think it's important. And the city is doing really well, in my opinion, because of everything that you've done. So I thank you for that. It's really been fun to watch all of the, you know, improvements. I just joined the Historical Society too, because I think the history here is fascinating. So that's basically all I really wanted to say, but thanks for doing what you've done, and I hope that it improves, and I'd really love to see the spas flourish. And in doing that, I know the hospitality will also bring in tax revenue, but just to have, you know, people be visually relaxed when they come and they stay at the spas.
Thank you so much for your comments.
Yep.
Next on my list is Don Dietz.
Mr. Mayor, council members, the one special amenity that stands out in Desert Hot Springs is our renowned hot water spas. They are recognized all over the world as being world-class, like Baden-Baden in Germany. It is truly a tragedy that the city has neglected to support the spa owners. As long as I've lived here, that has been the case. The city hasn't even been fit to provide visible, readable signage to the spas or Cabot's Adobe. The signs are about the size of a no parking sign. Tragic. So how can the tourists find these spots? May I propose that the city provide incentives to the spas to inform of improvements, grants, and tax relief. Money should be allocated in making Hacienda and Miracle Hill an attractive boulevard leading to and around the spas, and not to be overlooked sizable, readable signs. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Sally, is it Hedberg?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Mattis and council members and staff and public. And boy, they've said it all. So I don't know, but I'm going to kind of cut to the chase. I made a list, and I really appreciate the comments from both Kathy and Don, but I'm just going to read off my little list. Number 1, beautify the streets in and around Miracle Hill so tourists and spa guests. Now, this doesn't sound very nice coming from a little old lady, but it says spa guests who won't get so creeped out about how shoddy the area is when they visit our tourist attractions, like our world-class spas and Cabot's Museum. Truly jewels. And number 2, attracting investments and incentives to bring new businesses to the area for the purpose of promoting tourism and fixing up the old dilapidated spas. I mean, we have just so much potential here in DHS, and I'd like to see that happen. And 3, improve lighting, landscaping, and signage to all spa destinations, Cabot's Museum, and the new Historical Society headquarters, the Rock House. I think that's really important that we start including that wonderful landmark. And number 4, something near and dear to my heart, somehow help the homeless with shelters. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you for coming up. Last speaker card is Maria Elise.
And good evening, everyone. My comments also are to your study session topic and what everybody else has been speaking on. And I'm so happy that residents came to speak. Obviously, the spas are for improving the area, but the residents, of course, see it as well. And so that's why, but how I see it is I'm here to ask you to invest in tourism. Investing in beautifying our thoroughfares and creating a pleasing environment for guests, but also encourage new investment. With all due respect, you guys have done an incredible job, absolutely incredible. But it is shameful that after 20 years that I have been here, there has not been one improvement to Hacienda. There are no signs to the spas, not to Cabot's Museum. It's shameful, really. And at this point, it's simply not enough to put up some signs. Along the irregular boundaries, dirt curbs, asphalt sidewalks, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to hear continual comments from guests. It's embarrassing for residents. And it's embarrassing that it appears as if the city shows little regard for the tourist. It was Councilman Betts who made me aware of what medians can do along Hacienda as a first step. Spaced out medians from Mountain View to Palm, with palm trees, lighting, landscaping, signage, letting developers know that you are serious about attracting them. Creating a welcoming environment in the Opportunity Zone. The Opportunity Zone is a big deal. We don't know how long this is going to last, and it is a big deal. For investors. You know, 40 years ago, I drove up a 8-lane highway in Macau in China, and I thought, what in the world is this 8-lane highway doing here in the middle of nowhere? And at the end of it was one highlight track. And I realized that they were building the infrastructure for gambling. Now, 40 years later, Macau is the Las Vegas of Asia. It's a $40 billion industry, and it starts with infrastructure. You know, we all say it over and over again, the views, the water, the everything, the cooler temperatures, and it's primary in our mission statement. But unless we show developers that we're ready to start to devote our natural resources to develop tourism, it starts with infrastructure. And this is not for a privileged few. When you develop tourism, you develop TOT, and developing tourism benefits all residents. I urge you to invest your money where you're going to get a return. And this is where you can get a return. This improves the lives of all Desert Hot Springs residents, and that's the goal. And this helps you achieve that goal. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments tonight. I have no other speaker cards. Is there anybody that would like to speak in the audience? I see nobody coming forward. Anybody on Zoom?
No.
Thank you very much. Move to the city manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor. I will move quickly through our updates, starting with our finance director.
Okay, good evening. And so our financial highlights as of December 6th for our fiscal year 21-22 revenues, we have over $7.5 million in revenue, which is 25% of the adopted budget. Last year at this time, we had over $6.5 million in revenue at 22%, and the year before, $4.6 million, which was 20% of the budget. For expenditures this year was over $9.8 million, which is 31% of the adopted budget. Last year at the time, it's $9.7 million at 36%, and 2 years ago was $8.4 million at 35%.
Thanks, Jeffrey. And an update from Public Works.
Good evening. Update for the signal at Indian and Dillon. The signal has started installation, and the signal should be fully operational by the end of the year. MPL is pouring back the concrete on Pearson and West. The number 2 lane will be closed until the concrete is fully cured, hopefully by tomorrow afternoon. And on Palm Drive, northbound, between Camino Aventura and Two Bunch Palms Trail, the contractor's doing repairs to the collars around the sewer and valve cams. Their next schedule is for Monday to do the repairs. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. And then a quick announcement from our Executive Program Director.
Just a reminder, our annual Parade of Lights is this Saturday at 5:45. The parade route starts at Mission Lakes and ends at 2nd Street. And immediately following the parade is our holiday festival with live music, food vendors, carnival rides, and pictures with Santa. We will officially be lighting our beautiful tree as well. So please join us for a fun-filled night. Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Council, can you beat that? I'll start with Mr. Betts. Mr. Nunez.
Gonna follow that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to give just a quick update. Last month, right after our veterans event, me and the city manager did a tour of all the parks, and me and him had pretty much on the same page that we have a lot of parks that could use some upgrade in some way or some sorts. Most importantly, that some of these parks have not being used for the full potential. So we want to make sure in the future that we're planning these parks that we can finish them, and if they are entitled, that we push the development to make sure they finish these parks when needed. The other thing, over the past weekend, I would say Sunday, we were at the ICSC conference in Las Vegas, and it's basically, for the residents that don't know, it's basically the retail shopping industry and restaurants that get together, and cities go and try to recruit them. My understanding, this was my first time going, and I was impressed. What I've been told before is it's the size of a city. Because of COVID, it was scaled down to just a few thousand, which was still for me overwhelming. We got to see a lot of the majority big box companies and restaurants there, and no commitments were made, but I know the city was heavily footed traffic through our booth. So it's exciting times to be in Desert Hot Springs, I could say that, and I'm hoping that we can attract, of the ones that came to our booth, if we can attract them, I'm pretty sure the residents of Desert Hot Springs would be pleased. So thank you for taking me. It was a great experience. I want to thank Jan Pye for guiding me. She was my mentor, if you will. And Gary Gardner, thank you for showing me around. Thank you.
Mr. Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of quick things following up on some of the comments earlier in the public comments. I found it interesting, and I do agree with you about the signage stuff, and we do have those signs, but they are a little difficult to read. So I think down our road next year is some of our planning projects. We should look at maybe changing some of those big wayfinding signs, adding a few more of the spas to it, but also changing the colors enough that they're a little bit more readable, because they are out there. I know, and it's sometimes difficult to read, but I think doing that would help at least solve that misconception that there's no signs out there. We had a Desert Hot Springs Historical Society board meeting, and I wanted to just quickly announce that they'll be resuming the popular soup suppers in January. This one will be on the 20th. It'll be at Mission Springs Country Club. I'll announce it again a little bit later. And our speaker will be none other than our very own Doria Wilms, Deputy City Manager, who will talk about growing up here in Desert Hot Springs. So that'll be really interesting and a lot of fun. So, and then lastly, but I know we have a lot on our agenda tonight, we had the grand opening for our new Long Canyon Trail last week. It was very, very well attended. We had a lot of great press on it. Had a lot of people taking off on a hike after we cut the ribbon. It's a fantastic new trail, and it's going to generate a lot of interest locally and regionally, and be a big draw to DHS as we expand our tourism base. But I especially wanted to thank everyone who's worked so hard over the years to get this trail in place, including our predecessors on our city council who actually, as far back as 1994, passed a resolution to have that trail put in. So pardon the pun, the Long Canyon Trail has been a long time coming, and I really, really want to thank our exceptional and wonderful public works crew for all of their hard work in cleaning up the area, hauling out an unbelievable amount of trash, spent bullet casings, shotgun shells, shot up trash, all kinds of stuff. They even went out so far and graded the road, and so it was smooth enough for some of the yuppies who drove their Teslas up there to be brave enough to take their Teslas off-road. Those of us who are off-roaders were not at all afraid to go up there. So it was a nice, smooth road. It's a great opening festivities, and it was fantastic. And all of the signs that you guys put in, Nick, you and your staff are absolutely the best. And we couldn't have pulled that off without them. And that's all I've got, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Pye.
Mr. Mayor, you said we have a huge agenda. I have no comment.
Mr. Betts.
Yeah, now that I've had some time to think about this, I'll probably keep my comments a little shorter also. We have a big agenda. I just wanted to quickly thank the residents who turned out to lobby for some improvements of beautification on Palm Drive. Somebody made a comment about looking, I forgot the word you used, I just think it's ugly. It's just ugly to drive up Hacienda. And the saying is, Rome wasn't built in a day, but 20 years is a long, long time. And so I hope you will continue to push. That's what it usually takes. I think we've got a good council up here interested in doing that. We don't have unlimited funds, but we do at this point have some discretionary money that we can put towards extending the Hacienda plan. And without getting into a big discussion item, I'm all there, I'm all in on this one, and I hope the rest of my council and the city manager and everybody else will make that happen. It's long overdue. I looked around on the same theme. I looked around the city, and Gerald, we're not going to play that video. I'm going to wait to another day. But I was down at Stater Brothers Shopping Center, and I noticed that the pigeons had made a mess on the sidewalk, and wasn't recent, piling up. And then I go and I look at Dollar General, the old one, and they're supposed to have 3 palm trees there. They only got 1, and then it's dead. And I don't know how the heck that landscaping went from what was approved with by the Planning Commission to what it is now. I've already had the discussion with staff, and I've gotten their assurance that, when that landscape, when they go approach them, it's not just a matter of high, you've got a dead bush, you got to remove it, or a dead palm tree, you got to remove it. It's high. This was approved with 3 palm trees, a whole bunch of plantings, everything else, and you're going to put it back the way it was. And I just really irritates me, because if you go back and look at the pictures of this place when they did the ribbon cutting, it was beautiful. And what made me think about this, my wife says, oh, Dollar General just looks ugly when she goes there. So I go there and I look and I go, how did I miss this? Since 2018 is when the problem started. How do we miss this stuff? So I'm just hoping that staff will go get on these shopping centers, because as important as it is for Hacienda to look beautiful, these shopping centers have to look nice or people are going to shop somewhere else. And everybody that's here in the business has got an obligation to keep their place looking good. So that's enough on the let's make this place beautiful speech. I'm going to touch quickly on Sunline. Sunline's having some tough time with employee shortages, and I mentioned that before. But one of the casualties of that was line 220, which was going to Riverside and San Bernardino. And what makes this come up is I had some students of UC Riverside who live in Desert Hot Springs who decided to make a decision to go to UC Riverside based on line 220 being in existence. Well, it's not running anymore. It was actually a pilot program that was scheduled to shut down in May 2020 anyhow. It shut down a little bit early, but they're having a hard time getting to the school that they committed to. So I don't know what the answer to that is, but the ride was only generating 8.7 passengers per trip in fiscal year 20, and that's pretty low. So, but even system-wide, again, having a real hard time getting employees. And I don't know what the story is there, because it seems like everywhere you go, they're having a hard time getting employees. I've never seen billboards that said help wanted in my life. And people are actually putting out billboards, not advertising a project, just saying, come here and help us put this out. We had a financial update, which I think is significant. Typically, our city had not been at a lot of financial risk when the economy took a dip because we used pretty stable tax base like property tax, and the hoteliers were doing such a good job that might dip a little bit, but it wasn't severe. But our recent good times now, where we've had this revenue come in, we're now 45% of our income is subject to wild swings of the economy, which ends up putting us in a little bit more of a precarious position financially. So we really need to be mindful of that and watch and see. Whereas our financial consultant put it, he said it was volatile income. So, you know, things aren't always wonderful, and so this is just a call to everybody to be aware that we're watching to make sure that, you know, if things take a dip downward, that we're not going to crash like we went through before. And as much as we want to do everything, for example, keeping the pool open all year long at the Furby pool, you're probably looking, I don't know how much it is just to keep it open just for the time we do now. It's just not everything can happen. And you see on social media everybody saying, well, let's do this, let's do that, let's do that. And the money literally does not grow on trees. And in the position now is we really need to be mindful. And what we got going for us right now is, and I hope the staff will follow through on this, is that we're going to have regular reportings to this council if any of these benchmarks are hit that says, hey, we've got some signs of trouble coming. And so that we don't get ourselves in that position. We want everything nice and smooth. And unfortunately, it's good times now, but that can change. Mr. Mayor, that's it. I had some other things, but I'll get to them in the next meeting.
Great. I will try to speed this up. I attended the Public Safety Academy and Real Academy building dedication at the high school built. I was able to say a few words for the city of Desert Hot Springs. If you haven't seen the new campus, you can drive up Golden Eagle Way. You'll see the new buildings on the right-hand side as you pass the main entrance. There's actually a bay that a fire engine can fit in. There's a simulated back of an ambulance. There's a large area for the Real Academy to build their wind generators, and they built an electric go-kart so far. These are pathways for these students to make it into trades that they might want to go to. As you might know, our whole district is open enrollment, and in Desert Hot Springs High, Public Safety Academy and the Real Academy are two of the pathways. It was a fantastic building, and the grant that they received was well needed. Cleanup committee met. The city manager and I met with a longtime resident of the Coachella Valley whose mother had a piece of property here that wants to donate it for Parkland, so we're actually working through the process of that, which is much needed. I attended our financial forecast meeting, which all of us did. CVAG had an administrative and personnel committee that I attended. The Long Canyon Trail ribbon cutting was fantastic, and again, kudos to our staff and Public Works for all the work you did on that. Thank you so much. And then you can't not thank Gary Gardner for all the hard work he's done. There's been many council members in the 15 years that I've been on the council, in the lifetime that I've lived here, that try to get these trails named, and he finally got it over that hump. So thank you for your hard work on that. Food Now had a fundraiser in Palm Desert to raise money for our local charity here in Desert Hot Springs that feeds people in need. During the pandemic, they were feeding up to 750 families a week. They're back down to under 500, closer to 350 on a normal basis. But it was a much needed fundraiser and put on by a very nice person in Palm Desert. Women's Club that evening had their annual fundraiser, which raises money for local students that are going to go to college. I think in the last few years they've given out 20 or so grants. So each grant is usually around $1,000 per student, so that money goes well used to our youth of our community who are going to college. Coachella Valley Association of Governments had their executive session, executive meeting, which nothing directly pertained to Desert Hot Springs that I can remember. Met with quite a few developers, met with quite a few people who want to develop projects in our community over the last few weeks. You know, it's always great to sit with them and talk with them and see the positive that comes out of them after they hear our vision. We just hope they get the money together and put a shovel in the ground, right, Maria? So, a lot of interest in our spas recently, which is great. Riverside County Transportation meeting had their meeting this morning. Nothing pertained to Desert Hot Springs in general, so I won't go over that. As reminded by our executive program director, the holiday parade is this Saturday. Please be out between Mission Lakes and 2nd Street. It is in the evening again, so we did that for the first time a couple years ago before the pandemic hit. This is a great opportunity for everybody to come out and celebrate the holidays. We're going to have that whole intersection right behind us here blocked off. There'll be some free cotton candy. I won't say there's free In-N-Out because I did that once. That wasn't free. what was it? It was some tacos or something I did. But there will be some freebies given away, so we'll wait to list that off at the event there, so I don't say something I shouldn't. But we're really looking forward to it. And then we have a live band. They're coming out, and they're going to have fun. And I heard that Gary's going to dance. In your skirt? I mean, your kilt? Maybe. You never know what he's going to do. We did have a study session that started at 3:30 today, and a lot of your comments today were taken very seriously. Those comments at 3:30 were taken seriously. The American Rescue Plan Act, which is money that's coming out of Desert Hot Springs, $5.1 million is being planned over the next 2 years. The infrastructure package that the Senate and that the legislators in Washington, D.C. have passed are also another pot of money that we're looking at. So I think you have full support on the Hacienda rehab project. You'll see a lot. And Gary is right. There's a lot of signs for our spas out there, but you obviously just can't read them. we need to get them read. So we got to fix those. Thank you for all your comments tonight. They'll be added to our study session that we had at 3:30 today. So as we move forward to make that. And lastly, on behalf of the City Council, happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. However you spend it, just be kind when you do it. Appreciate you. We appreciate everything that you've done for our community, for all of you that volunteer out there, and especially during that pandemic. So with that, again, we have a long meeting. I'm going to move into the agenda. You only get one.
All right.
Nah, absolutely.
I just, I saw him here, and I do apologize. I just wanted to say hello to Mr. Padilla. Jorge Padilla is one of our members from the community cleanup, and I really want to appreciate him. And also my neighbor, but every time I see him outside, I try to stop and get some words of wisdom from him. I just want to say thank you for all you do, senor. Also to the residents that were here tonight to talk about beautification. I think Mr. Padilla is an excellent resource for you to get together to see how we clean up this community together as a whole. So you might want to get with him, and he can help you guys. Thank you, Mr. Padilla. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, with that said, we're going to move on to the public hearings. Do I have anybody in the audience or on Zoom here for the annexation number 43? Do I have anybody on item 6, annexation number 45? Do I have anybody in the room for item number 7, which is creating a special tax area 51? We'll move to the administrative calendar. I'm assuming, is there anybody here for the audited financial statements for, is Webb's here, aren't they? You guys can wait a few minutes. No, I'm joking. We're going to take it. You're here. I'm going to get you out of here early tonight. What do you think about that one? Is that the only item you guys are here for?
The first 3, yes.
The first 3? Okay. Let's see. The award of the contract. All right. And then item 11, no one's here for that. I got a couple. Okay. So we're going to start with item number 8 of the administrative calendar, audited financial statements for fiscal year 2020, 2021. Mr. Buckheim. This is a receive and file, so there'll be a report. If you have questions, we'll get to those.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We have Francis Kuo with the city's independent auditors, the Poon Group, here to do a presentation for us.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and the member of City Council. I'm very happy to be here. It's been a while since I visited the city and look at this nice city hall. What a change. So tonight I'm here to present the audit for fiscal year 2021. And here I have the presentation for tonight's presentation. So what I will go through is go through the scope of work, what we have done for the past year for the city, and talk about the required communication in accordance with the auditing standard, a couple key pages of the financial statement and the pension information and the audit result. So for fiscal year 2021, we performed the audit for the city's financial statement. We also completed a housing successor compliance audit and perform 2 separate agreed upon procedures. One on the appropriation limit schedule, the other one is on the city's UUT, the utility user tax. So our responsibility related to these audits is to form our audit opinion and determine whether the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respect. And we also perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance instead of absolute assurance. We also consider the internal control over these financial reporting and determine what audit procedures to perform on the audit. So couple required communication in accordance with the auditing standard is that we actually fulfill all the ethical and the independence requirement. And part of the financial statement preparation is the city has to disclose all the significant accounting policy and also the significant estimate. So the city has disclosed all the significant accounting policy, which is disclosed in the note 1 to the financial statement, and also the significant estimate involving the financial statement amount, such as the fair value of the investments, the depreciation of the capital asset, because that's one of the biggest investment the city has, and also the net pension liability. And a couple, since the disclosure related to the financial reporting on the on the accounting policy, on the pension, and of course the contingency and commitment. So we'll list out the notes to the disclosure, which is included in the agenda package in the financial statement. And there was no material uncorrected misstatement to the city's financial statement, and there was no consultation with other accountants related to any audit or audit matter that will impact the financial statement. We also happy to say that we didn't have any difficulty dealing with management in completing the audit, and there's no disagreement with management, whether it's on the accounting treatment or on the audit procedures performed. So the financial statement is hundreds of pages, so summarize the information in the next couple slides. So you will see that prior to last fiscal year, the city actually had two different components. One is on the governmental activities and one on the business activity. And because of the dissolution of the Health and Wellness Foundation, so all the business activity are transferred into the city, the governmental activity. So now you only have the governmental activity for the city. So we'll see at the end of the year of 2021, the total net position of the city was at $57 million compared to $55 million in 2020. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the biggest component of the city's net position, which is the city's equity, is the investment in capital asset at $52 million in 2021. And a portion, $16 million, is restricted net position, which has specific purpose that city can use the funding for. And the unrestricted, close to $11 million unrestricted net position. And for the so the governmental activities, which was the statement activity that talk about the revenue, the expenses. So the difference between the program revenue and the expenses, that's what we call the cost of service, which is the service provided to the citizen on the public safety, on community development, or the program that the city have put together. So for fiscal year end 2021, the net cost of service is $14 million. And which is also covered by the general revenue. So the general revenue are the unrestricted tax revenue and some investment income to cover the cost of service at $16 million. So the net change in net position is increase of $2.3 million in comparison to the $14 million. And the reason in 2020 there's a big increase in the net position was the transfer of the asset from the foundation to the city. So it's a combined the two entities together. Now you just have a single reporting unit. And when you compare the cost of service to the tax revenue for 2021, it's at 88% in compared to 94% in 2020. So now looking at the general fund, which is the main operating fund, and combine the general fund with the public safety, you were looking at $13 million of the fund balance at the end of 2021 in comparison to $11.12 million in 2020. And so one of the numbers that we look at is to look at what is the unrestricted fund balance, which is the combining the committed and the assigned fund balance. How is it compared to the annual expenditure? So you are looking at 55% of the unrestricted fund balance to the annual expenditure for fiscal year 2021 in comparison to 52% in 2020. And here is the statement revenue, expenditure, and changes in fund balance, which is the income statement of the general fund. So it shows that the revenue over expenditure by about $10 million. And then there's some other financing sources, which combined the two, it's a $1.9 million decrease. So the net change in fund balance is an increase of $1.3 million in 2021 in comparison to the $400,000 increase in 2020. So in this slide, it shows the past 5-year trend of the fund balance for the general fund in combining with the Public Safety Special Revenue Fund. So it went from $8.5 million back in 2017, grew to $13 million in 2021. So you see a steady increase the past 5 years for general fund. And the next two slides are about the key pension information. As pension is one of the largest liability for the city. So you see for the city had two plans. One is the miscellaneous plan, one for the safety plan. So for 2021, the miscellaneous plan had $3.7 million of net pension liability at a funding ratio of 75%. And the safety plan has $9.6 million of net liability with a funding ratio of 72%. And in both years, contributions were made. So in 2021, close to $700,000 of contribution were made toward miscellaneous plan, and $1.3 million made toward the safety plan to fund the employees' retirement. With that, going through the audit results, so we are happy to report a modified opinion. What that means is the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. So the accounting policy are consistently applied, and the estimates are reasonable, and the disclosure are proper in the financial statement. We also didn't report material weakness with significant deficiency in internal control, but we did have a finding on housing compliance, which is noted in the report in the agenda package. And with that, I'm happy to answer any of the questions you may have.
I appreciate the comments. I'm just going to take public comment real quick. Do we have any public comment on Zoom?
No, we do not, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have public comment in anybody in the audience on item number 8? All right, go to council. Any comments? This is a receive and file, so we don't take any action, but is there any comments?
Just quickly want to thank you. Great confidence in your firm.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for support.
I just want to say I thank you for your opinion. Very good. And I thank management discussion also. And Buck Humber, you and your team did an excellent job.
Anyone else? Good? Awesome. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the agenda. We do have speakers, or we do have individuals in the audience on these items. Public hearings. Item number 5 is annexation number 43. The City of Hot Springs Community Facilities District number 2010-1, services for APN 644-144-005, 644-151-004, and 644-151-005, located south of Hacienda and east of Mountain View Road. Mr. Buckheim.
Yes, thank you. So this is a public hearing for the election of annexation of 0.82 non-resident acres of non-residential land that is currently being developed into the community facilities district. And if approved, a special assessment is going to be levied on the 3 parcels to provide funding for maintenance services. Staff is available for your questions, and Charmaine with Web Municipal Finance is also here to answer questions.
Do I have any questions of City Council to staff on this item? I see nothing. I'll open the public hearing at this time and take any public testimony. Is there any public testimony on Zoom?
No, there is not, Mr. Mayor.
And do I have anybody in the audience who would like to make any public testimony on this item? I will close the public testimony at this time. Any more questions, or is there any questions for staff? We'll move to adoption. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution calling for the election?
Next, number 43, City of Desert Hot Springs Community Facilities District 20111, on and on.
This is for the resolution to call for the election.
Yes.
And there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
We'll now hold the election and canvass the election. Mr. City Clerk.
The property owner has voted in favor.
In favor?
Yes.
Thank you very much. We'll now take a motion to adopt the resolution declaring election results.
I move we adopt the resolution and affirm the resolution, affirm the election results.
Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Item number 6 is annexation number 45 to the City of Desert Hot Springs Community Facilities District number 2010-1 services for APN 639-212-019 through 639-212-023 located west of Palm Drive and north of 4th Street. Mr. Buckheim.
Yes, so this is a public hearing for the election of annexing 0.84 acres of non-residential property currently being developed into the Community Facilities District. If approved, a special assessment can be levied on the 5 parcels to provide funding for maintenance services. Again, staff and Charmaine with Web Financial is here to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions by the council? See none, I'll open the public hearing at this time. Take any public testimony. Do I have any public testimony on Zoom?
No.
Anybody in the audience like to make any public testimony? Seeing nobody coming forth, I'll close the public testimony. Any more questions or discussion by council? I'll entertain a motion to call for the election.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to have a resolution calling for the election. Please vote. We couldn't hear you. Yours is off too. They're flashing green. You need red. There you go.
Okay. Motion passes unanimously.
There you go. With that, we'll hold the election and canvass election.
The property owner has voted in favor.
And now I'll accept a motion to adopt the resolution declaring the election.
So moved.
Results.
Second.
Just wait on a second to go through. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item 7 is creating a special tax area to 51 Dollar General for the APN 639-212-019 through 639-212-023 located west of Palm Drive, north of 4th Street within the Desert Hot Springs Special Public Safety Tax Area. Mr. Buckheim.
This is a public hearing for the election of annexing 5 non-residential lots currently being developed as the Dollar General store into the public safety tax area. If approved, a special parcel tax will be assessed on the lots to help provide funding for public safety services. Staff and Charmaine are here to answer questions.
Do I have any questions? I see none. I'll open the public hearing and take any public testimony. Do I have any public testimony on Zoom?
No.
Do I have anybody in the audience that would like to make any public testimony? I'll close the public hearing at this time. City Council discussion. Any questions of staff? See nobody jumping up and down. We don't need to have a resolution for this one. We'll just hold the election and canvass the election.
I move we hold the election for.
We don't need to do the resolution on this one.
The property owner has voted in favor.
And now we'll adopt the ordinance established in public safety tax area.
All right, I move we adopt the Area 51, which
Area
probably
51.
comes with a flying saucer or two.
It is public safety tax area 51.
I'm not going for it.
I've got a.
I'll second.
Thank you. And please vote. See, we're famous not just for hot water. We're famous for the 51 now.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Do I have anybody here for the award of the contract for the Public Safety Dispatch Center? Okay, I'm going to move past that. Item number 10 is development impact fees, discount of fees. Mr. Porras, our Assistant City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Just give us a couple of minutes to bring up. There you go. This item is regarding development impact fees, the adjustment of fees. Just a real quick history. Development impact fees were approved at the City Council meeting on November 2nd. The City Council approved the development impact fee study. Council also directed staff, thank you, to review the diff fees for commercial office and residential and bring back recommendations for a fee adjustment for the City Council to consider. The development impact fees that were approved on November 2nd are as follows. The residential detached dwelling fee was $12,037 per unit. The residential attached dwelling fee was $10,174 per unit. Residential mobile homes was a little bit over $7,000 per unit. Commercial lodging was a little bit under $4,000 per room. Commercial office was $14.82 per square feet. And industrial manufacturing was $4.88 per square feet. The only items we're discussing today are the residential detached dwelling fee and the commercial office fee, which is highlighted in red. We'll go over the commercial office diff analysis first. Commercial office diff approved fee is $14.82 per square feet. The previous fee was from 2008 was $9.59 per square feet, which was a over 40% increase. We're trying to figure out ways of how to stay competitive with other Coachella Valley cities, how to incentivize bringing commercial businesses to the city, how to incentivize bringing additional retail stores, convenience stores, restaurants, and offices. One comparison or one way we did that is staff used 3 sample projects. We called various Coachella Valley cities, and we obtained estimated diff fees associated with that type of project. Some cities calculated by acre, some cities calculated by square feet, others calculated within their own building permit fees. So we could not compare apples to apples, but it was more of a range of comparison. The 3 buildings we used, or 3 projects we used, were a 30,000 square feet building on 4 acres, a 18,000 square feet building on half an acre, which was about the grocery outlet size, a 9,000 square foot building on 0.84 acres, was about the Dollar General size building. When we compared those 3 projects with other cities using the $14.82 per square feet fee, the Desert Hot Springs fee was between 30 and 37% higher than the highest city in the Coachella Valley. Some cities didn't respond. Again, this is not a perfect comparison, but it was a comparison that we could find at the time. There are 2 cities that are currently working on updating their diff fees as well. With this increase, staff is recommending, in order to stay competitive, incentivize bringing businesses to the city, staff recommends that to discount the commercial office diff fee from $14.82 a square feet back down to the previous amount of $9.59 per square feet, which would be a discount of 35%. In reviewing the residential detached dwelling diff analysis, staff, the approved fee was $12,037 per unit. The previous fee was $9,103 per unit. In order to increase or continue to increase residential construction activities and vacant residential infill lots are available, and how to promote and incentivize builders to build the remaining residential lots, the first thing staff did was review which lots were available in the city. We did that, and actually I'll come back to this, and we did that by first mapping out the land use map. In this map, you'll see different land use zones. They're all in different colors. You have yellow, purple, brown. You also see the red lots. All red lots are vacant. In this area that's boxed in, the yellow area, you'll see a lot more red lots, which are vacant within the residential area in the city. In the middle of the city, you also see a lot more residential lots in the middle that are also vacant. And then in the south part of the downtown area, you also see a lot of red lots, which are also vacant. We established the boundary for infill lots, or majority of vacant infill lots, to be Mission Lakes to the north, Two Bunch to the south, Choya to the west, and Verbena to the east. Staff also did a feedback or a question and answer from 3 builders that we currently work with. The 3 builders were asked various questions. They don't know that we were asking about development impact fees. We try to just establish just like, hey, how come you're building here? What are you doing? Some of the questions we asked were, how long have you built in Desert Hot Springs? Their answers were 16 years, 27 years, 43 years, so they are experienced builders. Do you have preferences building between tract homes and individual homes? Some said tract, some said infill. We asked what would incentivize you to build more homes? The ability to acquire land, being able to purchase land, and cheaper permit fees were their answers. Does the city's development impact fees affect your decision to build in DHS? The higher it goes, the less I build. Everyone's raising their prices, and fees are currently reasonable compared to other cities. The other answers were sometimes yes. The DVD fees are the biggest deterrent. Absolutely, everything is all about money, what people can sell for and what they can afford to pay. The last question was, if so, how do DHS diff fees compare to those of other Coachella Valley cities? The fees are reasonable compared to other cities. I enjoy working with everyone in the city. It helps. It's a give and take overall. It's good. And the last one, with the reasonable compared to other cities. So from this question and answer, we realized that the diff fees were actually not a deterrent. They were actually reasonable compared to others. There were other affecting factors that weren't part of the diff fees. With that, in order to promote it, staff is recommending to discount the residential detached dwelling fees from $12,037 per unit back down to the amount of 9,104 units for the residential detached dwellings within that boundary of infill lots. This is a discount of 24%. The specific area, again, would be through Choya Drive, Urbina Drive, and 2 Bunch Palms and Mission Lakes Boulevard. It will incentivize builders to build residential development for infill lots. Vacant infill lots will become developed. Illegal dumping and vacant lots will be reduced, and infrastructure connecting all the lots will be completed. We did meet with Desert Valley Desert Valley Builders Association. There was a Desert Valley Disposal comment about that. And Gretchen actually is here right now. Sorry about that, Gretchen. Staff met with DUBA, and actually DUBA supported staff recommendations. They did have other recommendations, but they did review ours and did support the staff recommendations. I'm sure Gretchen will have something to say. With that, staff is recommending to discount commercial office from $14.82 a square feet to the previous amount of $9.59 a square feet, which is a reduction of 35%. The second recommendation to discount residential detached dwellings within the boundaries of Choya Drive, Urbina Drive, 2 Bunch Palms Trail to Mission Lakes Boulevard from $12,037 per unit to the previous amount of $9,104 per unit. That would be a reduction of 24%. That concludes my staff report. I'd gladly answer any questions.
Thank you for that report. I think you staff did a fantastic job on this. I think you took our comments from the previous meeting when we approved the study in whole and really came back with something that I'm happy to see. With that, I'm going to open up public comments. We'll start with Zoom. Anybody on Zoom?
No.
Wow. With that, I know. I'm going to pick up my job. Staff, you did a really good job. Let's end this night and go to the bar. With that said, I'm sure Gretchen has a few comments. So anyone in the audience?
Oh, now my turn.
Yeah, yes.
Golly, I didn't know I also changed jobs in the last 20 minutes. Wow. Okay. So, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, and staff. Thanks for having us at the podium. Gretchen Gutierrez, CEO of the Desert Valley Builders Association. You know what, since we haven't a lot of stuff, can you go to that very last slide? And the reason I am asking if Daniel can put that very last slide up there is we did meet with 6 of your staff about a week or so ago with all of this discussion here. Yes, we are supportive of what the staff recommendation has been shown to you this evening, but it's not really truly a discount. Let's call it what it really is. It's holding your current fees on 2 categories. One is your commercial office space at the $9.59 a square foot, and then the residential on those infill lots at the current level. So you're not giving money back to anybody. So don't anybody think you're giving money away. You're currently collecting those fees at this point. What we're asking is that you adopt this because we want to build out those infill lots. We'd like to see them finished for your community, your infrastructure needs, et cetera. So we recommend that you adopt it, and let's move on. Let's go forward. You all also could use as an incentive coming out of ICSC the fact that you've held your fees on the commercial office stuff. That's your selling pitch to any of those folks you talked to at that booth in the last 3 days. So use that number, all right? That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sure.
You want to ask a question? Sure,
Yes,
I'll answer anything.
I have a question.
Sure.
Real quick, do you know if other cities are doing the diff studies and where they're at on their studies?
I'm not sure what the second city is. India's in the middle of dealing with theirs. They just finished their diff study. They actually adopted it 2 weeks ago, but they're looking at their user fees right at this particular point in time. Who's the other city?
Palm Desert? Is it Palm Desert? And I mean,
Palm Desert is probably some months away from it, though. Yeah. They haven't even issued a draft yet.
And you know more or less, where the market is and where things are looking at.
Most days.
Do you foresee their rates going up, and by how much?
Well, okay, so, oh gosh, we're going to have a lesson here on the Mitigation Fee Act.
Yes, ma'am,
okay, so under state law, under the Mitigation Fee Act, a city or an agency that does collect diff fees has to do a nexus study. They have to prove that they want to collect the level that they want to collect at, and it's dealing with their level of service, dealing with their internal needs. There's a whole mathematic formula that goes into it. Usually takes about a year to 2 years. In the last couple of years, it's taken 3 to 4. Given COVID, et cetera. It's a lengthy process in order to raise diff fees, your user fees, et cetera. That's the short version of something that's very long and detailed. That's number one. You also are mandated that you cannot say, gosh, we're at this level, Palm Springs is at this level, we think we should also charge the same level. You're not allowed to do that. You have to stand alone. Okay, so that's another short explanation to this whole entire process. Where everyone is standing right at the moment, you all are in the mid-range compared to the other 9 cities. We do a tri-annual fee study review work through our office here in the Valley. We look at the county of Riverside and we look at the 9 cities. And we do it every 3 years because that's about how often you do a fee study update in the cities. Some cities take it as an annual adjustment and they tie it to a CPI index and they take it as part of their annual budgeting and review process. Other cities wait to do a full study because they haven't done for a while, which is kind of what's happened here in Desert Hot Springs. So that's where you are today, right now. I'm not sure if that answered fully your question. Somewhat, yeah. But you're in the middle of the pack at this point in time. You're looking to attract businesses. So one of the things that's going to be very key for a business to come to this community is to know what your fees are and have them set and move forward with it. And you don't want to look at an increase. And by the way, the increase would have been 54% for commercial office, not 40%, 54%. Okay, so that's what you got to be key on.
Thank you.
So that's what you want to look at.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez.
You're welcome. Anybody else? I'm standing here. I got an open mic.
Comments for Gretchen?
Okay.
Thanks.
Not a problem.
Go ahead.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Gretchen, too. I really appreciate all the work DVBA has put into this. I like this. Again, Danny, your staff has been fantastic on taking the direction that we as council gave you a couple of weeks ago on this. And Gretchen pointed out, too, coming down from ICSC, diffs are not the driving force to make somebody make a decision, but it's an ancillary one. And you made the great point that we've held ours and lowered them from what they could be. But what I particularly like in this is the infill lot, because keeping those a little bit lower is going to lower our overall housing costs, which are going to help with our RENA numbers. It's all a big chain, and it'll also help fill in those trash-filled lots that we see all scattered throughout the city. So if we can build houses in there, and a lot of those lots are odd-shaped and smaller than the tract housing lots out there, and so we can build some much more affordable, much needed affordable housing in there, and the diff will keep that cost another $3,000 lower, which is going to help more people get into homes, which, again, as our chain analogy goes on, keeps building and making the city better. So I'm very happy with what we have here in front of us, and I'm very happy to support it.
So what we have in place right now are higher fees. And just to correct the speaker a little bit, the fees are what they are right now. That was adopted by the council at the last meeting. And now the proposal is, do we want to lower the fees that were adopted? That's what's before the council right now. And given our city's desire for more retail options for our residents, it only makes sense to me to discount these fees to make us as attractive as possible and encourage new retail development. And then similarly for the housing, certainly everybody knows the costs are going up, and it's way more expensive to build a house, to own a house, to buy a house. And so I think the extent that we can hold down the fees that were recommended by the consultants and adopted by this council, this is a very positive move for this city and for this council. So I would wholeheartedly support increasing the competitive position of Desert Hot Springs by supporting this. I'd like to make the motion if it's time. So move adoption of staff's recommendation.
I'll second that.
And then I see our council member had to depart. Do we wait for him? I can keep talking.
I was going to say, I'll sing. Okay.
No. Singing, dancing. Gary, did you bring your kilt? All right, Mr. Nunez had to step away from the podium, but please vote.
He's frantically racing back.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to item number 12. It is the award of a contract for Burke's Rick Communication. Ms. Cernick.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The city had previously contracted with a local marketing firm for advertising, design, and public relations services. In June of 2021, due to an internal staff change, the firm was no longer able to meet the city's changing needs. The city had immediate needs to upgrade the city's website and begin planning for live events since COVID-related restrictions were lifting. The city began searching for a qualified marketing firm that would meet our immediate needs and have a keen understanding of the Desert Hot Springs community, a strong vision for furthering the city's economic development efforts, and the ability to organize live events. As a result, Burke Ricks Communications was identified as a highly qualified local firm due to their extensive experience in marketing, event planning, website development, and public relations. Staff started working with Burke Ricks in July of 2021. They played an instrumental role in the creation of a new website with their creative approaches, website development experience, and marketing strategies. They have a proven track record in producing large-scale events and conferences that include SoCal Cannabis Summit, Southern California Energy Water Summit, and Modern Living Expo. Burke Ricks Communications is an award-winning Coachella Valley-based firm specializing in government affairs, community outreach, advertising, public relations, campaign strategy, and conference production. They have bilingual capabilities and Spanish translation services. Over 30 years of industry experience working with local governments, private industry, and nonprofits. So staff is recommending that the City Council award the professional services agreement to Burke Ricks for a 3-year term for marketing, design, event planning, and public relations, in an amount not to exceed $295,000. That concludes my staff report, and Brian Ricks and Josh Zipperman are here if you have any questions.
Great. Do I have any public comments on Zoom?
No, we do not.
Do I have any public comments, or Brian, Josh, would you like to say anything before the council gets into discussion?
You want me to say something on your behalf? Voice? Okay. I mean, we're best friends. Whatever.
Just if you have, did you want to make any comments before I get to questions by council?
Not really.
Okay.
We're happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. I think if we if this gets approved, we're going to need some new signage through town. So we're going to have to work on that marketing. There's a marketing on that for us. With that, we'll open up to City Council for discussion. Yes, Mr. Jordan.
No, I'm happy to do it. We do have a PR need here in the city, and our previous firm did a really good job. But I'm excited. I know the two principals here, and they do fantastic work across the valley. And I'd love to see their level of work here, and where we're going to move up to the next level. So I'm happy to support this.
Ms. Pine?
I've done work with Burke Ricks also, and they're a good organization.
Mr. Nunez, anything?
Harry, I apologize. You had to use the restroom. I can hear everything, and I just thought I thought Mr. Betts would take longer than he actually did. So thank
you know, he does this on purpose. Whenever you think he's going to do something, he switches it up on you. Mr. Betts.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. I can't let you just sit there. So maybe you could step up to the podium and so you could answer these on the mic. First off, we had a bunch of hoteliers in here asking, you know, to try and get a little bit more recognition through our city streets. People drive through our streets. Is that something that, did you think about that when they were talking about it? And is there you have some ideas that popped into your head?
I did. I saw an assignment for new signage.
What would you envision?
Well, I mean, you have to go through a design process in terms of what the need is, and then assessing what the need is, and then figuring out exactly what you're going to do with it. We've tried to keep all of the signage and all the stuff that we've been doing consistent with the city colors, consistent with the city theme, and make sure that it really works with with the overall look and everything else that's being done here in Desert Hot Springs.
Okay. So and the other question I had was, we had this previous theme of this is DHS, and as I'm driving back from LA with some friends, I see this billboard, and some friends of mine say, well, what is this? This is the Department of Homeland Services. do you recognize that, you know, most people driving down the freeway don't see DHS and know what it means? That while it might be synonymous with Desert Hot Springs in our minds, are you going to support?
I think most of the stuff that we've done has actually said Desert Hot Springs in it, rather than using the abbreviation.
So which one do you prefer, DHS or Desert Hot Springs?
I would use Desert Hot Springs.
Well, that's a good answer. Then you got my vote.
Thank you, Russell. Councilman Betts, sorry.
I remember a mayor saying many years ago that he called the press and said, stop using DHS. This is before the Department of Homeland Security shortened theirs to DHS. He says, why is it every city is always spelled out in the paper, but DHS is DHS rather than Desert Hot Springs? So it always stuck in my mind, and so yeah, Desert Hot Springs is important to us, and saying that name, even though you have to write it and it's long, it's important that we get out there. It's not Hot Springs, it's not Desert Springs, it's Desert Hot Springs. Did you have a comment?
I just want to thank you for meeting me with a couple of months ago or last month, whatever. And I think we both agreed that, you know, in the Hispanic community, that advertising in Spanish is really, really huge. So, however it goes tonight, I'm hoping that sticks. You know.
Yeah, one of our staff members is bilingual, and she has actually produced material, a lot of the material that we've been working on here in both English and Spanish. And I think we did put together very quickly a radio commercial for the Christmas event. And that is, I think, currently broadcasting right now. So it's actually on the air, and I think that will have a big impact in terms of helping, along with the event that you and I talked about at the meeting.
Absolutely, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
And not to forget that Mrs. Cernick over there, she has a ton on her plate and has been promoted in doing a lot of rec programs, so it takes away from a lot of the event planning that she's had. So to have a strong firm like yours behind it's going to help out a lot. So
great.
With that said, I will motion for the recommendation to authorize this 3-year term.
So moved.
Well, I moved it, he seconded, so you guys didn't need to do it. I move it every once in a while just to throw you guys off.
Yeah, you did.
All right, with that, please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
And you had multiple council members fighting over who's going to motion for you guys. So.
Thank you very much, and happy holidays to everybody.
You also, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we're going to go back to item number 9, which is award of the contract, Police Department's Dispatch Center Tenant Improvements. Mr. Hager.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. On October 20th, 2020, the City Council approved staff's recommendation to authorize the City Manager to begin the process of reestablishing dispatch services to the Desert Hot Springs Police Department. Due to the space and infrastructure needs, it was deemed that the new dispatch center would be housed within the current police department facility where the Detectives Bureau is presently located. The new dispatch center would require tenant improvements. On October 12th, 2021, the City of Desert Hot Springs advertised the request for proposals, RFPs, for the Police Department Dispatch Center tenant improvements. The RFP was available to the public at planetprintworks.com and listed on the city website, on the City of Desert Hot Springs website. The tenant improvements to convert the Detectives Bureau into the dispatch center included complete renovation of the open area for 5 working stations, a supervisor's office, construction of 2 restrooms with showers and lockers, and a break room. On November 18th, 2021 at 2 p.m., the bidding for this project closed. On November 18th, 2021 at 2:30 p.m., the sealed bids were publicly open and read aloud. The city received 6 bids for this project. The lowest bid was OCS Construction, Inc. However, the bid was deemed incomplete when publicly open and read aloud. The second lowest bid was Diamond Construction, Inc. Staff reviewed Diamond Construction's bid and deemed it to meet the requirements considered to be an acceptable bid. Staff did an extensive background check and verified Diamond Construction's references and deemed Diamond Construction to be the lowest responsible bidder. The construction costs of $459,800 included including contingency, is included in the dispatch center startup costs approved in the adopted fiscal year 2021-2022 budget. Staff is recommending authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Diamond Construction, Inc. for the police department dispatch center tentative improvements in the amount not to exceed $418,000 with a 10% contingency of $41,800 for a total of $459,800. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Haker. Do I have any public comments on Zoom?
No, we do not.
I'm just going to call you by name, George. George, you have any public comments? I'll start with council, Mr. Gardner.
Quick question for you, Nick. Just curiosity and for our residents' sake, we award this contract. How long is the construction going to take, and when are we having a ribbon cutting on that?
So we're actually going to have a really good schedule. It's projected about 4 months. We're doing the kickoff, if approved tonight. We'll do the contract and get everything set up to be ready to do the kickoff the first week of January, looking to start construction mid-January and concluding before the end of the fiscal year, because I know we are on a crunch for being open in September.
That's it? Are any other comments?
Chief, are you happy with this?
If it could be done tomorrow, I'll be happy, but yes, this will work.
Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you. All right, we'll entertain a motion.
I move we accept the bid for the dispatch center.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Move to item number 11, resolution declaring intent to transfer from at-large to by-district elections and setting forth the process for transitioning to by-district elections. Ms. Mizrahi?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I don't know how much you'd like me to get into the staff report. It's all pretty much written in the staff report, but the item that you have before you this evening is a resolution to do pretty much what you just said. I'm happy to go into the report if you'd like.
Mr. Surion, anything to add? Okay.
No, I do not.
Do I have any public comments on Zoom?
No, we do not.
George, any public comment on this one?
Can I just?
Yes, you may, but you got to come to the microphone.
I was just going to sing a song.
Hi, everyone. Just for clarity, because I come from another city and, had that situation where you come from one city to the other every other weekend. Where I lived in Inglewood, we had the district situation and we had city council representation by a representative that lived within that district. Is that what this is going to provide? So knowing what I know, there's 3 of us that live in proximity, so it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. But my 2 cents on it is I love the way it worked. I was able to talk to my city representative and get resolution or information on things specific to our area. We're a growing city and there's so many differentials within the city. So what's happening on my side of town is irrelevant to this person over here. So with this specific representation, I really believe it's going to help us as citizens have a better voice. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Real quick, Mr. Padilla?
Yes.
I don't want to read into things, but I heard you say there's 3 of us living in a district. Is that a hint that you're running for council?
No.
Okay.
No, it's 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, just come straight out and asked you. With that said, is there any comments by council? I see none. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
With reluctance, yes, I'll second.
Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Move to item 13, Spa Revitalization Incentive Program. Ms. Wilms.
Just getting the PowerPoint pulled up. All right, good evening, Mayor and City Council. On November 2nd, 2021, the City Council approved the Spa Revitalization Incentive Program as proposed. Staff at the time was directed to review and update the corresponding map to correct some inaccuracies and properly reflect the eligibility areas in which the spa properties must be located in order to qualify. Additionally, staff was directed to bring back any final feedback from the City Council for review and consideration. Staff has since modified the map to encompass all spa properties located atop of the natural mineral aquifer rather than limiting the program to those atop of the hot water mineral aquifer. Additionally, staff has received the following proposed changes for consideration. Actually, before I go into that, as you can see, the map is before you. You'll notice previously the orange area, the area that's designated in orange, was the only area that was shown on the previous map. That is technically the hot mineral water aquifer. The area that's shaded in the light blue is actually the entire natural mineral aquifer that the city sits on top of. Some areas are hot, some areas are cold, but at the end of the day, all of these hotels that would qualify for the program as presented would just need to sit on the aquifer in general. And so that is what the map reflects. As far as the inaccuracies in the previous map, you'll also notice that we've simplified the map and have removed all of the previous landmarks that were previously on there and just kept it very simple to highlight the hotel and spa properties in our city. And of course, we had to continue to make reference to Cabot's Pueblo Museum because he is the one that found it all. So with that said, moving right along, I did mention that there were 2 additional modifications that staff did hear back from council, a couple of members of, one member of council in particular, that I am bringing before you all tonight for additional consideration. So the original spa revitalization incentive program proposed that any improvement to the hotel that resulted in measurable change in transient occupancy tax would qualify. There is a proposal to modify this section to limit the improvements to capital or physical improvements and specifically exclude any service-related improvements, such as the cost of staff for concierge services, for example. If approved, this section would be modified as follows. It would end up simply being that there is no minimum investment or minimum number of rooms. I'm sorry, only capital physical improvements to the spa properties qualify. There is no minimum investment or minimum number of rooms. Service-related improvements are specifically excluded. Additionally, the original program specified that the program would terminate if there was a change in the majority ownership of the hotel, meaning that the program would not be transferable to a new owner of the property. There is a proposal to modify 2 sections to tie the program to the property rather than to the property owner. If approved, these sections would be modified as followed. So under the incentive program period, it would be changed to 2 years or shorter. Incentive program ceases before 2 years if the amount of the renovation investment is reached prior to the end of the 2-year period. We're simply striking out that last section that states, or if there is a change in the majority ownership of the hotel. The other section that would be modified is the other covenant section. It would be changed to program will terminate at any point in which a spa hotel receiving the benefit ceases to operate as a hotel. As I mentioned, these are proposals for you all to review and consider. With that said, all other components of the program at this time would remain the same based on those 2 proposals that were presented, bringing this back to council as directed for you all to review and provide staff direction as to whether or not these proposals would be included in the incentive program that's already been approved. That concludes my staff report.
And I'll let the committee add a couple points too before I open public comments. Mr. Gardner, Ms. Pye, anything you'd like to add?
Make this short. I do not accept any of the proposals. I'll tell you why. Number one, if there is a measurable difference that creates TNT, that's all I'm asking for. One of the things, for example, that Marie Lease did, she is allowing tickets for in the pool. That's going to increase TNT. As long as you increase TOT, then whatever you're doing does qualify as long as it is a measurable difference of TNT. Number 2, change in the property. No. The ownership goes with the person who created the change in the TOT. For other hoteliers who, yes, have already did the measurable deduction or were not able to do it, it is unfair for them to pass it on because of property or to someone else. And I don't want to have an instance where a person, it goes with the property and then that person doesn't do anything, but he gets the rebate. And the change for 3 and 4 is based on the same information with regarding property or the owner. I'm done.
Mr. Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I concur with Councilmember Pai. We discussed a lot of these issues as we were developing this, and we discussed these issues as well when we adopted this in the first place, which was, what, a month ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was. The change of ownership was one that was particular to me. If somebody makes the investment into a property and they reap the benefit of it, and then they sell it, they're going to be able to recoup that by selling it for a higher price because they improved the property and it's a now functioning property that is earning money. And they're the ones that took the risk on it, not the person who's buying the hotel. They can reflect that in the price of the hotel when they sell it. The provision regarding has to be a physical or capital improvement is likewise. We discussed that. We gave staff the flexibility in that area too. Somebody could come up with something really creative, such as Maria is doing, is charging for day spa use and adding TOT to that in the future. We may want to, as a council, take that to our residents down the road as of extending the TOT to day spa use as a possible revenue generator. And so if they come up with a way to do that, that improves that, they should be able to reap benefits from that as well. So as far as the proposal goes, I appreciate staff redoing the map, and I support the way we have redone the map, and that includes all of the hotels that are currently in the city or potentially could come to the city and build or punch a well, do whatever they need to do for that. So I'd like to see us move forward with accepting the map as redesigned, and that's it. That's all I've got.
We'll open up for public comments. Anybody on Zoom?
We're getting all Christmassy with the
I don't know. They're turning green over there.
No, we do not.
Thank you. I see nobody in the audience, so nobody's going to come forth. I'll now open up to council member comments. Mr. Nunez?
Yeah, thank you. I like this. This really defines, and I'm happy with the verbiage. I'm glad that we're opening it up to all the other spas. I think this pretty much gives us a balance, and we're fair to everybody, not just certain groups. I'm hoping with all the money they save, they start the beautification program that they want. So hopefully they can do that.
Mr. Betts?
Yeah. So first off, just to confirm, this does apply to every single hotel in the city now, correct? Hotel, motel, boutique, spa?
That is correct.
None are left out?
There is none left out.
Okay, good. And the, my thought is that it should be tied to capital improvements just so you have something tangible. I'm not going to, it's not going to make or break my vote on that one. And maybe I don't understand this correctly, but, how the ordinance is working, but if I'm in the process, if I'm in a struggling boutique spa hotel and I want to attract an owner, a new investor, then I have this program that I've put in place, and now they come along, and maybe I've got everything in place and I'm working this, and I say to them, hey, here's one of these benefits that you can count on down the road to buy my hotel. And that might just be enough for them to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to make this investment. And maybe if we had something like this in place, the Bowmans, who ended up selling Living Waters Spa, which was an award-winning, acclaimed boutique spa hotel in this city, that something we could all be proud of, would have been sold for something else, or might have been able to attract somebody to keep that as one of our award-winning spas instead of it being lost. So I don't see what the disincentive would be to allowing a new owner to come in who is most certainly taking a risk and making an investment on a business. They're just making a little less risk that would make it possible for them to come forward. But again, if I don't want to argue this forever on that one, but it just seems to me to make infinite sense to have this from a business standpoint applied to some new owner coming into place. I don't see anything a matter of fairness or unfairness about it. It's just a matter of good business sense. So, but anyhow, those are my main concern, I guess, is that it applies to all hotels. I'd sure like to see these other two things put in there, but if it's the sentiment of the council that they don't want to go that way, I'm not going to hold things up.
All right, go ahead.
I agree with the change in the map as well.
All right, do we have any other comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I move we accept the proposed change of the map to the Spa Revitalization Incentive Program.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item 14 is approval of the final map 38027 and the subdivision improvement agreement for Morongo Industrial Park.
Quick point of order, if I could. We've been jumping around quite a bit. Where are we? How many do we have left to go?
We're on item 14, and that's 3 items left.
14, 15, and 16?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Porras.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Try to keep it brief. On December of 12, 2017, the Planning Commission approved conditional use permit number 2517 for the Morongo Industrial Park project, which included 7 freestanding 2-story buildings totaling a little bit over 300,000 square feet. This project is actually located just north of the current project that has 17 buildings that are in some phase of construction on Little Morongo. It's about half a mile north of Dillon. It's the same property owner. They're just expanding to the north. On May 11, 2021, the Planning Commission approved a tentative tract map number 38027 that will subdivide one lot into 7 condominiums. It's not condominiums as the apartments, it's condo map. What that means is that the formal definition is that it will allow each building to be on separate taxable lot over one shared common space. In other words, the property owner can sell the airspace within each condo or each building that's there, and there is a common area which includes a parking, retention basin, entry, and so forth. The owner is also required to dedicate a butters rights to Little Morongo. A dedication note is shown on the map. Part of the project improvements and requirements as a condition of approval are on-site and off-site public improvements. The off-site public improvements are all the street improvements for Little Morongo. The on-site public improvements are all the grading, parking, entryways, entry improvements, and underground infiltration system. In order for the contractor to meet that requirement, he is submitting a subdivision improvement agreement with the allowed and the required bonds. Those bonds are accepted with this subdivision improvement agreement, which guarantees the performance of that. Formally, that just means that he is submitting some type of security, some type of money that says he will continue to finish the improvements. If he does not finish, then we have the authority to move in and use the funding to complete those public improvements, not just for the city, but for the same property owners of each of those condos. We do have a draft subdivision improvement agreement as part of the exhibit with some draft bonds. The project will follow the new street section of Little Morongo that we currently have. And with that, staff is recommending that the City Council find six portions of the recommendation. The first portion is a find that the tract map 38027 is in substantial conformance with the previously approved tentative map. Approved the tract map 38027 is in accordance with all conditions of approval. Accept the dedications as offered on the map to restrict access along Little Morongo Road. Accept the subdivision improvement agreement, performance bond, and linear materials bond, and authorize any substantive changes to be approved by the city manager and city attorney as to form. Authorize the city clerk and city engineer to sign the map evidencing the city council's approval, and authorize staff to process and file the maps and subdivision improvement with the county recorder's office. These are just our standard administrative procedures that we just have to follow. That concludes my staff report. Glad to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Do I have any public comments on Zoom?
No, we do not.
Thank you very much. I see no one in the audience, so we don't have anybody in person. I'll move to Councilmember Comments.
I'd like to make a motion for staff recommendation 1 through 6.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Is there any comments?
Yeah, I got some comments. So they submitted plans and everything for what they're going to do on Little Morongo. Has that already been taken care of?
Yes.
And that was already looked at and approved by the Planning Commission?
By the city staff. Conditions of approval were completed and approved by the Planning Commission, yes.
Okay, what about the design elements for the project? Parking, how the street's going to look, all the things?
Yes.
The Planning Commission reviewed those?
City staff reviews those. Planning Commission approves conditions of approval, not plans.
So the plans for how this is going to go, like how the curbs, gutters, sidewalks, plantings, all that's not going to be approved by Planning Commission?
No, never approved by Planning Commission. City staff approves it. They set the conditions and the design parameters, but the actual plans get approved by city staff.
Wow, maybe I'm not following this one carefully, but I don't quite understand that.
There is
what
draft
am I
plans.
missing here? Normally when a project goes to Planning Commission, they have a full set of plans. They're talking about lighting.
Correct. Those are approved, but they're not. They're still go through plan check through the city staff.
The plan check to make sure it meets code, but how the thing's laid out, how many parking spaces, all that stuff.
Planning Commission.
Planning Commission. And they've done all that already?
Yes.
Okay. Now, complying with the California Building Code, all the technical engineering stuff like that, they're not approving.
Correct.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that this had gone to the Planning Commission. They've looked at it and reviewed it.
Yes.
Did they make any mistakes?
Don't think so.
Okay. All right. Good. That was my question. Thank you.
I have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item 15 is Assessor Agency. Recognize the obligation payment schedule ROPS 2223 for the period of July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2023. Mr. Buckheim?
Yes, this before you is the Recognized Obligation Payment Schedule ROPS for fiscal year 22-23. This schedule lists the remaining obligations of the former redevelopment agency. The total obligations for fiscal year 22-23 amounts to $4,907,835, which consists of $3,698,638 in debt service payments, $5,500 for trustee fees, $953,697 for the repayment to the Housing Authority Fund, and $250,000 for administrative costs. The funding for the ROPS comes from the annual property tax increment, which is deposited into the redevelopment property tax trust fund with the county. Any residual amount in the trust fund at the end of fiscal year 22-23 will be distributed to all the taxing agencies according to the normal property tax distribution schedule. So, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any comments on Zoom?
No, we do not.
Thank you very much. Move to, there's nobody in the audience at this time, so we'll close public comments, and we'll move to staff questions by council. I'll entertain a motion.
I move we accept the recognized obligation payment schedule for the period of July 1st through June 30th, 2023.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item 16 is the Community Development Block Grant, also known as CDBG, program for fiscal year 2022-2023, Mission Springs Park Facility. Mr. Haker.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Each year, the city receives an entitlement allowance of the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. The city's 2022-2023 CDBG allocation is estimated to be $296,000. The majority of these funds must be spent on capital projects such as housing, public facility improvements, or eligible public works projects. Due to the federal budget process, the exact amount of the city's 2022-2023 allocation may not be known until as late as May. Staff completed an inspection of all city facilities and noted one of the current needs is for the restroom improvement at Mission Springs Park. The restroom facility at Mission Springs Park is currently operational, but continues to have major issues with vandalism, overuse, and proper ADA accessibility. Mission Springs Park is approximately 9 acres in size and is mostly used for youth sports activities such as AYSO soccer and the Junior All-American football and cheerleading. The park currently offers a large grass area for sports play, various playground structures with shades and various age groups, and restrooms, snack bar, and storage. In order to keep up with the higher demand for park usage and to improve the facility to meet the current standards, the restroom, snack bar, storage facility needs to be rehabilitated. The current building lacks proper ventilation, lighting, and ADA accessibility, and the storage needs of the youth programs has outgrown its current available space. If approved, the city will receive $296,000 through the Community Development Block Grant for fiscal year 2022-2023. The Community Development Block Grant funding budget for the fiscal year 2022-2023 will be increased by $5,000 to reflect the revised grant amount. Staff is recommending adopting a resolution of the City Council authorizing participation in and authorizing the city manager to approve all agreements and necessary documents associated with the Community Development Block Grant for fiscal year 2022-2023. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments on Zoom?
No, we do not.
And I have nobody in the audience. I just want to make a general comment. I know I'm going to try to tie this in, so Madam City Attorney, slap my hand if you need to. And I meant this comment in our study session, we spend a lot of money on our parks, and every 3, 5, 7 years we're having to go back and spend a lot of money on our parks, which continues to not allow us to buy parkland and build parks, because we have to go back and fix things and update things and those types of things. Can we in the future maybe think of outside the box? You guys are smart, all of you are smarter than me, on a way to build a reserve fund that would help with the maintenance of the park, but not just the maintenance, because we have the operational maintenance, but how do you fix your restrooms every 5 years and update them as they need to, because of the craziness that goes on in those restrooms, meaning the kids vandalize them or the adults vandalize them. So how do you build a reserve fund? We've asked that years ago when the cannabis industry came in and we were collecting tax dollars, that we would put 25% aside for future financial needs to make sure that our financials were strong. So could that be a mirror of something from some fund that we use, that we put 2-3% into each year, and Jeffrey's able to put it off to the side and say that's going to be used for rehab of the parks when needed, and when these bigger projects come forth and you need $25,000, $30,000, $50,000 to do something, it's there, and we can still bank more money going forward on building other parks. Just a comment, we've used that community development block grant so many different times in so many different ways, and it seems like they keep using the same parks over and over again. I mean, this year it'll be Mission Springs, next year it'll probably be Wardman, the year after that'll be Tesco, just go in a big circle, on how we spend that money. So it's just a thought, something to think outside the box and see a way that we can maybe build a reserve fund to do that. I'm hoping with some of this money that's coming forward that we're going to have opportunities to buy some new parks. And we got the 3 parks taking up all the money. How do we get another park in there? We can't do it. We've got to find ways to fund the repairs in these parks, the major rehabs over 5-10 years every time. So I'll stop my comments there. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Neves.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A short answer. I mean, I used to sit on the board of directors for AYSO in Indio. And the best way to generate money to help fund that park in Indio was to have regional tournaments. And this is where we'd have cities like Pomona participating, Victorville, Palmdale, even in San Diego, and they would come and use the park for tournaments in our city, and they would use our restaurants, they would use our hotels, because it's a weekend tournament. Unfortunately, our park is one field too small, so meaning that they would need a field for every underage team, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16, and we're one field short have a regional tournament. What we can do if we had a relationship with the school district, that they could open up the field behind the middle school and use that as part of the tournament. Looking back, I think we estimated that a regional tournament can bring $2.5 million in tax revenue, and that's not including TOT. This might be something we can consider. Of course, it takes a little bit of money. If we use that money to put back into the park, we can do that. And I think it's a great way to, we lease out the park for these tournaments, and we can use it for other tournaments. If it's football, baseball, flag football, there's other ways to hold regional tournaments, and we can allocate those monies that we get from the taxes, and a little bit portion can go toward the parks. I think we can put our heads together and we can do this, and I think that the Parks Committee is a great way to use that. But I think I would move to approve it once everybody gets their comments made.
We did make a motion right there. Is there a second? I'll go back to everybody's comments. Second. There's a motion and a second. Ms. Pye, anything? Mr. Gardner? Mr. Capets?
So on the staff report, it says that this funding was from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, but it was from HUD through Riverside County, correct? And how many years has it been that we voted to go with Riverside County CDBG, and we're locked in for how many more years?
So I'll pass it to Danny in just a moment. I know where you're going with this question. I'll pass it to Danny to answer that question. I do want to let you know that staff has listened to you about whether or not we would get more bang for our buck by going and doing this ourselves at the federal level. Danny and I both met with representatives from HUD at the federal level, and straight out of the gate, we're told that in order for us to even have a seat at the table to do that, or an opportunity, we need to have a population of 50,000 residents. So until we hit that population benchmark, we are unable to apply directly to the federal government. We need to continue to participate in the county program.
What's the population of Coachella?
So I don't know that off the top of my head.
And I didn't ask that question, by the way, but we've been sitting here long enough and asked it enough times. But what's the anybody know the population of Coachella?
I'm unaware.
48,000, I believe.
So they're not at 50,000.
Not, well.
And they haven't been at 50,000 for a long, long time. They didn't go to 50 and come back down.
So I can't speak to the city of Coachella, but I can speak to.
So what you're telling me is at odds with, and I don't want to examine that point again, but what you're telling me is at odds with what Mayor Hernandez has told me, what their population in Coachella is, and what most recently Supervisor Manuel Perez said, that we should be going straight to CDBG. But we have some time to take that up. My question was only, how many more years are we tied to the county program when we agreed to join that program?
Yeah, I believe it's all the way to 2023.
So 2023. So
Yes.
we have until then again to examine that question. My suggestion was, and I like the idea of using CDBG funds for a regional soccer park. 296,000 isn't going to be nearly enough to build park, but it sure be nice if we're going to do something and trying to track that let's think big. Let's have a soccer stadium instead of just Mission Springs Park. I don't know how attractive that's going to be. Even if we did manage to get one more field, you need bleachers, concessions, whatever. It'd be nice to have it. We had a guy in from Cannabis Control, came in, and I was just giving a tour of the building. We had a meeting with him, and he looked at this and he goes, wow, what a nice facility. We'd really like to use this for our board meetings when we do board meetings throughout the state. Somebody goes down there and sees our soccer park that looks like a soccer park instead of just basically essentially a field right now. We're going to go somewhere. Now, the school district land is nice, but across the street from that park is a big, huge area of land. And if we're looking at, and I'm trying to keep this on subject, so you just watch, I'm on subject here. So if we're looking for future uses of CDBG funds, or another consideration for CDBG funds might have been buying that land from the county and making a big giant soccer stadium to do what you're saying. So there we go. Thanks. Got to be creative here.
I Googled it, 2019, 45,000 residents. You were close. It probably is 48,000 now, at least. Might even be over 50,000. All right, I have no other comments. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know the staff is going to be very upset with this. They were planning on spending a lot more hours here tonight. They probably told their spouses, significant others, that they were not coming home, so you may go do what you like on the mayor, by the mayor.
Can I just say one more thing? It wasn't them, it was you that was wrong on how long we were going to be here.
Well, you know what? I'm going to stop guessing. After 14, 15, almost 15 years, I got to stop guessing. There's 4 items on the agenda. We're here for 16 hours, and 16 items on the agenda. We're here for 2 hours. So, to all of you, our staff, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, however you spend it, Happy New Year. This is our last official council meeting where we'll all be together for the year 2021, and what a year it was. But we made it through. I hope 2022 brings us all much better time. I know that we've got a lot of projects underway, and I'm very excited for what it has to hold for us. There is a joint meeting with the Planning Commission next week, so if you're really bored and you're not assigned to it and you want to come watch us, we'll be here again. What time does that start? Does anybody know? Planning Commission starts at 6. What time? Will we have a joint study session with them?
To be determined.
To be determined? Okay. So, we're not. They're going to have to spread us out. Yeah, we were going to start 2 hours before. I hope the city clerk's office knows that. The study session starting at 4 o'clock, city clerk's office. So we'll get that out there. But Planning Commission study session with the joint is a joint meeting. We're just going to talk about some development issues throughout our city, and it's been a request of the Planning Commission for a while. So hope you can join us on that. That will be the last official meeting for this year, and we'll be back on the second meeting in January, which will be January 18th. With that, again, happy holidays.